said, what are you bringing to the table? Men are tired. I'm not bringing nothing to the table, baby. Sprinkle, sprinkle.
Shera herself has been jokingly dubbed the female Andrew Tate by her commenters.
Both Shera and Andrew Tate kind of come with the mindset of like, these men don't love you, these women don't love you, they're just using you. This is a game, you need to play the game.
Like, bro, what game?
What are we winning?
What are we winning? Like, I don't want to play anymore. Like, I really don't.
Bitch, what I was trying to say is this situation got me so wet and so dry at the same time. Exactly.
What's up, bitches? Welcome back to another episode of So Wet, So Dry. I am one of your hosts, Autumn, like the season. I'm a Taurus sun, Sagittarius moon, Capricorn rising, and I work in entertainment.
And I'm your other host, Fiji, like the island, like the water. I have multiple nails broken right now, but I'm calling it punk. And I work in social media and marketing.
If you guys are new here, what we do on So Wet, So Dry is we deep dive topics about sex, relationships, identity, all through the lens of pop culture, internet trends, and our community's experiences. We post polls for every single episode on our Instagram at So Wet, So Dry. The O's are zeros. So make sure you guys are following over there so you can be a part of the conversation and join our community of confused pussies.
Yes, and today we are talking about women's frustrations with men's inability to emotionally connect, paired with men's frustrations with women's demands for them to provide. We're also going to talk about the sprinkle lady. Is she a feminist or is she the female Andrew Tate? But before we get into all of that, we're going to start the episode as we always do, talking about what we're so wet and so dry about in this very moment. And I will go first. Okay. I'm so wet, guys, because it's our 50th motherfucking episode, okay?
Yes.
50 episodes. Like, that's actually insane.
I feel like it's like almost been more at the same time, too, but... yeah, and I'm so wet. If you guys are watching video version, you can see we did a little bit of a rebrand. We have a new cover art. We have a new logo. We have a new template for you guys to watch. And all of that, we do want to credit to my Lau, who was our graphic designer on this project. And we will, credit him. So shout out. Thank you for that. And yes. I just love it. I love our new color scheme. I love our logo so much. And we really in the cover just wanted to kind of show we are talking about internet shit. We are chronically online. We bring that to reality, and that's what we're all about. So
yeah,
we love it.
It's so crazy because when we first started, we didn't completely know what we were doing. We knew it was something in the realm of sex and relationships, and then we found personal identity. We brought in TikToks, we brought in YouTube discourse about gender and all of that. So we really think our cover just reflects a lot more of what we want to do for you guys and the community that we want to build. So we really fucking like it.
But yeah, that's what I'm so wet about. We're both wet about just this rebrand, a fresh start. Episode 50 also just hits, it just sounds really good. But yeah.
So I'm so dry this week because you guys know I work in marketing, and we market the podcast constantly. We're doing social media, we're editing, we're looking up top topics, and thank God for Autumn because she's been researching all of our topics for the past couple weeks because work has just been crazy. And honestly, guys, thank God
I'm unemployed.
So wet about that. But I'm just dry about working in marketing and being the creative writer person for the company. Is just they expect so much content all the time, quickly deadlines. And because there's so many AI tools, I'm just I feel the expectation is not as much reality if you want good content. So I'm just a little burnt out with how much needs to come out of my brain into my fingertips onto a document right now and then posted consistently. Yeah. And then also have the energy from doing that all day to bring to this. It just feels like I'm a machine. But, you know.
Like, you are the AI.
Right. Like, I am the AI. And, like, I definitely still use AI tools, guys, especially for corporate work. Like, I find it is easier for things. But I'm still a creative. Like, I still want things to be, you know, people can tell when content is created by AI, I think, at this point. So,
100%.
I'm a human. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, but that's so valid. I would say I'm dry just because I don't have insomnia. Like, I'm never someone that's really dealt with that. But girl, like, I've been up so late, just like in bed, like wanting to sleep so bad. I'm like turning to my dog, like, how the fuck do you fall asleep so fast? Like,
They
what the
fall
fuck?
asleep so fast.
I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm just like, because it's been fucking me up. Like, I've just been tired because of it. I'm not even trying to like stay up. It's like not on purpose. So it's fucking annoying. But
Playing
I'm
The
more
Sims?
wet than dry about anything.
Okay.
Like, I'm feeling good, bitch. Are
yeah,
you?
me too.
We're feeling
50, 50.
All right, y'all. So basically, this topic is big, okay? It took us a long time to really, like, you know, zone in on what exactly we want to say and talk about and educate ourselves and you guys about this shit. So I did write a little paragraph summarizing everything so you guys know exactly what's going to be in this episode, okay? So basically, as Fiji said, women are frustrated with men's inability to emotionally connect, offer emotional support, and be reliable, dependable in relationships.
Yep.
And this has caused women to bring back patriarchal standards and essentially tell men, like, you're no good unless you have money and you can greatly provide for me financially and otherwise. And this is a way of women finding a way to profit off of their oppression, get back at men for breaking their heart, doing them wrong, whatever it is. And amongst all of this, men kind of come back with, well, what do you bring to the table? Like, you're expecting all of this of me. What do you have to provide? And men are feeling the pressure that all they're wanted for is money because that's what we're directly telling them. So that's kind of the whole idea. It's like this cause of effect. Like, men, you know, they're not emotionally able to provide for us. Well, why? And we'll get into that. You know, it's like this is systemic patriarchy. Like, that's the whole episode. It's all cause of effect of all these things. And we did find this TikTok online that really captured the kind of, like, you know, what happens when men aren't able to emotionally give us that support. Like, what happens when they're not emotionally available and all of that. So that's my little spiel. But let's watch this TikTok as well because we both agreed, like, this was it. This was a great TikTok.
I don't know what happened. In my early 20s, I was so stupid and naive. I just wanted a boyfriend, somebody to cuddle with, and for some reason I thought they would be a good emotional support system. So I found a guy who was okay. He had a nice family, but he was pretty emotionally immature, would leave me to go on weekend trips to Vegas, and was showing no signs that he was really actually ever in love with me. But I couldn't bear the idea of being left behind as I saw my friends get married, and I drug his feet to the altar when I was 30 years old. But a year after we got married, after the house was literally done being renovated, suddenly he changed and everything just kind of fell apart. I asked him if he wanted to go to therapy. He said no. And that's when I realized, oh, he doesn't care about you at all. Like, and never did. But I couldn't bear the thought of being alone and still needed a man as an emotional support system. So I rebounded onto another guy who was pretty chill and we were best friends, but the spark was just never there. And he added more stress into my life than relieved me of it, actually. There was a lot of stress in our lives, and finally I realized I just couldn't do this forever, and I had to leave. So being single once again, and just despising the word relationship for once in my entire life because it had wrecked me emotionally and stress-wise, I said no relationships, just flirting, and I went out and had a lot of fun until 2020 hit. And so I got a little bored and decided to dabble with dating apps, where I met pretty much the lowest forms of men I've ever met in my entire life. Most of them just were there to emotionally manipulate you and get one thing out of you. After dating a handful of men from the dating apps, my rage had just reached a tipping point, and I just unleashed it. Mostly on the dating app men because, well, they deserved it. But I could really cut a man down. Real good. I took some time off from dating and found Shera Seven on YouTube, Sprinkle Sprinkle Lady, and I thought she was really funny at first, but until she started to make a lot of sense. Suddenly everything became clear, and the power dynamics that had always not been in my favor, suddenly I could see how they could be in my favor. So now no man can even breathe in my direction without me asking him to cash at me. So what happened?
So I think this woman's experience is like not unique. I think a lot of us can relate to it. Like we've never been married, but we've both been in like long-term relationships with men and kind of gone through that trial and error of like, I love you, but I'm doing most of the work. You're not really meeting me halfway. And then I'm going to go out and be single and be crazy and da 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 da. And it becomes depressing because, like she said, the dating apps are dry and lame, and men only want one thing, which is generally sex, and women feel like we can't connect. We meet up with them just for them to, like, let us down, all this bullshit. So it creates this environment of women just, like, looking for answers and looking for, like, what they should do. And when, you know, money comes into the picture, when you're so depleted of just putting your emotions into things, you're like, okay, well, if I'm going to get anything out of this, the least it could be is money, you know?
It's like this tipping point we can all relate to. You have that one relationship or that one experience that just made you feel like so hopeless in men as a gender around the world. Like, and maybe you had a lot of those experiences and then you reach that point and you just kind of want to lash out. Like, it's like maybe these men on the dating app, they weren't the direct result of making this person upset, but it's like she just lost it on them and was just like, well, they deserve it anyway. They're like low men anyways. But I think we can all relate to that tipping point. And I think it's good for men to like hear us when we say like, this is because of this. Like you said, it's not a unique experience. It's, you know, wanting to get back at being wronged and being wronged by multiple men. And like as sex workers, again, I mean, we're going to tie this in the whole episode, but it's like we were treated the same kind of awful way by so many men, all of them in their own little form, but it was all the same type of how they were treating us. So that's going to cause you to look at men differently, and that's not our fault. That's not our fault. Just like it's like if there is a good man that's doing everything right, but he has to deal with women that hate men, it's not your fault, but it is what it is. And it's like this woman was white too, and it's like, you know, Black women have it worse. Like this is even in those like other communities, it's even worse than this when you like bring in the intersectionality of it. So we can all relate to that as women and, you know, straight-ish women, I guess.
Yeah, and one thing that's really interesting, it kind of seemed like she was reading this. I don't know if you noticed, like, her eyes were going to the side. Like, it kind of seemed like this was something she wrote. But we played it, you know, in one. But the TikTok does loop. And at the end, she's like, so what happens? And the beginning, she starts with, so what happened? So I think it's almost like this poetic metaphor for this also being a cycle, which we're kind of going to get into as well, and, like, our experiences with that. So that's, like, just another little thing to pay attention to.
Yeah. But I really like that TikTok. Shout out to Crystal, bitch. Okay. And so now we're going to bring in some bell hooks, you guys. Shout out Khadijah. Fiji ordered The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. And did you finish the book yet or not yet?
Yes, I finished the book. It was amazing. I definitely cried in the beginning, guys. Like it took me two sittings to read. It hit. Definitely men, it's helpful for you. Women, it's helpful for you as well, especially when you're like coming to terms with your feminism in like 2024. Bell Hooks is a fucking genius.
We're using bell hooks as a tool, as a scope, as a perspective. So we're going to read some of Bell Hooks now.
Bell Hooks said, the first act of violence the patriarchy demands of males is not violence towards women. Instead, patriarchy demands of all males that they engage in acts of psychic self-mutilation, that they kill off the emotional parts of themselves. If an individual is not successful in emotionally crippling himself, he can count on patriarchal men to enact rituals of power that will assault his self-esteem. Feminist movement offered men and women the information needed to challenge this psychic slaughter, but that challenge never became a widespread aspect of the struggle for gender equality. Women demanded of men that they give more emotionally, but most men could not understand what was being asked of them, having cut away the parts of themselves that could feel a wide range of emotional responses. They were too disconnected. They simply could not give more emotionally or even grasp the problem without first reconnecting, reuniting those severed parts.
Ooh, okay, let's just keep going. It's so good. Okay. Bell Hook said, being vulnerable is an emotional state many men seek to avoid. Some men spend a lifetime in a state of avoidance and therefore never experience intimacy. Sadly, we all colluded with the patriarchy by faking it with men, pretending levels of intimacy and closeness we do not feel. We tell men we love them when we feel we have absolutely no clue as to who they really are. We tell fathers we love them when we are terrified to share our perceptions of them, our fear that if we disagree, we will be cast out, excommunicated. In this way, we all collude with patriarchal culture to make men feel they can have it all, that they can embrace patriarchal manhood and still hold their loved ones dear. In reality, the more patriarchal a man is, the more disconnected he must be from feeling. If he cannot feel, he cannot connect. If he cannot connect, he cannot be intimate. So it's almost like, I know, it's like deep breath, but it's like we want men to be emotional. We want men to be vulnerable. It's almost if we're asking them to do something that they can't do. They never learned how to do. And that's at fault of the patriarchy and society around them. And that part about, we're telling men we love them when we don't really know who they are. It's like we're faking it and like we failed them.
Yeah, and she talked about too, like kind of in this section about how like boyhood is literally socializing boys to disconnect. Like they're raised from this at a young age in a similar way that like us as women can relate to being like, if he's teasing you, that means he likes you, or like little phrases like that we grow up to have like ingrained in our brains. Boys have, man up, toughen up, don't cry, all of those things. And so it's like we desperately want them to connect and be emotional, but at the same time, that's not like an easy thing for them to do because they have to actively unlearn it and even realize that it's a problem. Like they're sold this crazy false dream of like, I can be a powerful man and like make all this money and da-da-da, but unknowing that that's never going to completely fulfill them. And so it affects all of us,
And I do have hope for like the newer generations, like, you know what I mean? But it's like dudes that we fuck with that are, they were born 30 years ago. They were raised 30 years ago. And where were we 30 years ago? We were not where we are now. So it's like, to expect that of them. And of course, it's not like giving them a pass, but it's like just knowing that and like being able to tell them like, I see you and I get that, but like, I need you to like work with me and like, we can figure this out. It's not just like, oh, that's how it is, fingers like crossed it works out. No, like they still need to put in work to unlearn that. But it's like, we should acknowledge that more as women in general, that it's like they are, not really being set up for success in a relationship.
And I think the hard thing is that like a lot of women naturally kind of have that intuition that that's what it is, that like men have a hard time emotionally opening up, so that they kind of take on that burden. And then like in a lot of the stuff that I was like watching and listening about like the soft girl era, which we're going to get into like a little bit later with the sprinkle lady, like especially for Black women have had to like carry a lot of that like emotional and domestic labor and everything for their families. So it's like for you to even look at a man and be like, why can't you at least do a quarter of what we're doing when we've been through all of this? But then like once we realize it's the patriarchy and it's not men today that were born or our fathers that even created it this way, we can kind of like maybe find the language to talk about these things so they can understand our struggles and we can understand that theirs as well,
Totally.
Okay, so that brings us into our next poll. We asked you guys, women, what do you prioritize more in a relationship with a man? 30% said his ability to protect and provide, and 70% said his ability to emotionally open up and connect. And I am so fucking relieved because I feel like in today's internet culture, whatever, people like make it seem like women care so much more about money and finances and da-da-da-da. And it's like, okay, yeah, we care about that shit too, to a point, but like we're still humans. And I think the majority do care about their ability to emotionally open up and connect. Like,
yeah, I think
you voted differently.
I voted different. Okay, but it's because I'm bisexual, leaning more towards lesbian. Yeah. I think as of right now, 5:56 Pacific time on Friday night. That's what I think. So I think I don't care. Like, but
Yeah.
if you think about my ex-boyfriend, like, yeah, I wanted him to emotionally open up and connect. But at the same time, that came like a year later. At the beginning, I was like, yeah, pay for my nails. Yeah, do this, daddy,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't give a fuck. So I think it's just because I'm on the queer spectrum, I more look to men. I'm like, well, you know, I never expect my girlfriend to financially provide. It's happened before,
Yeah.
but I never expect it. But with men, I do. With men, I do. And I also think it's like, you know, this has been a thing for so long, like growing up. It's like men pay, men give back, blah, blah, blah. So it's
Yeah.
very ingrained. And I think part of me is choosing it, but part of me is just like going with the flow. Like that's just kind of how our society is. But I think if I was more straight or more, you know, on the bisexual scale, leaning towards men in masks or whatever, I'd probably answer differently. But I also think it just says a lot about like how we grew up and the eras we've
Yeah.
been in. It's very men suck, bro.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on how you were brought up. I think it
What your
also depends on
sexuality is.
your sexuality, but also like what point in your journey of relationships you're in. You know, because if you're single out here and you just want to be single and you're just going on dates to have like a good time or whatever, you're probably weeding guys out by who is going to pay for your meal and actually come like with something to show. Versus if you're like getting to know someone and actually looking for like a long-term relationship, I think the emotions might matter a little bit more for people.
Right. It's all about perspective. But we're gonna transition now into kind of like, are women expecting too much? Like, are we expecting too much? And why are women, you know, specifically demanding that men pay more? So we asked you guys exactly that. Why do you think women are demanding that men pay more? And 48% of y'all said because traditionally that's how it's been.
True.
25% said because it's all men show they're good for. I fuck with y'all. 18% said because it's trendy, which is kind of what I was saying. Like, that's kind of how I feel. And then only 9%, which was literally one person said, or two people said sexism.
Yeah.
And I would say it's a combination of sexism and because it's trendy. I really do think it's because
See,
it's
that's
like,
so crazy because I'm the complete opposite too.
oh, love. Okay.
Okay, because I
Don't
think
start
I
with
voted
the
for because it's all men show they're good for. I was between that and traditionally that's how it's been. But I think for me personally, I didn't want men to pay for things for a long time because I was of the era of feminism that was like, no, I can do it myself. Like, and then I realized that that's not really like helpful for me. Like I should let men do things for me. Like let me fucking calm down. Like I'm still a boss bitch, whatever. So I think that went into the because it's all men are good for directly because of the traditional shit.
right.
If that makes sense.
It's also like I just have this thought too. Like my ex-boyfriend, he definitely the majority of stuff he paid for and all the time. Like I didn't like bring him random gifts or whatever. Pay for his nails, you know what I mean? But I do remember like when I would pay for the bill when we were out to breakfast or out to lunch or whatever, like I would feel like oh, like I'm taking care of him. Like it felt like good.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm like, I want to tap into that and lean into that because I think it's like just separating it for gender. It just felt good. Like I like being able to pay for people, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think I don't think it's because that's all men show they're good for. I feel like that's like definitely
In
like kind of
general, though?
sprinkle-esque.
But like in general, and I feel
But
like
I'm like, they're all broke. Like I haven't
mean,
been
they-
with
they
the rich
are.
daddies.
and that's the other thing which we're gonna get into with like the Andrew Tate stuff is a lot of this like men pushing that too as much
So
as
like,
women
they're
are
not
pushing.
good for that either.
A lot of like men aren't out here, you know, with a ton of finances in their pocket. So like it's not really everything they show they're good for, but I'm just saying in my experiences with men in general, they lack in almost everything.
Everything else.
So, but I don't
Yeah.
think it's because it's trendy. Like, I honestly think, yeah, it's trendy with like city girls and like, you know, all music and sprinkle and all of that. But I want to say, yeah, maybe that made it more like spoken about on TikTok and YouTube and stuff. But also like, I feel like it's kind of like always been like that, like traditionally.
I do feel like it's gotten a lot worse though. Like I feel like City Girls did kind of take on like a new thing for me. Even like Meg the Stallion a little bit. And did we have Meg the Stallion in college? Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
I'm like, what are the times? But like I'm just like, yeah,
No,
I don't know.
You're right, because I feel like there was this like attitude shift of once women started to like, you know, have our own, like we're not in the era of like 1950s sexism where we're like, we have jobs, we can provide for ourselves, we can pay for our own nails, like we're going after our dreams. I think before it was like, oh, men provide for us because they like have to, versus like then it became like men are jealous of us. So women wanted to be like, oh, we're demanding this still because you still need to like get to know us, and like, why are you being sassy or whatever. So
and
I
numbers
think,
don't lie. Like women in music, that's made us all be a little bit more like fuck it. And also like saying like the job gap and all of that. Like even though this is, you know, it's like if you do intersectionally, the job gap is not where it needs to be. But in terms of like, you know, so I think numbers don't lie, and that's kind of like risen us a little bit too.
But I would also argue that like, you know, men in like music and like rap music and everything, like they always brag about like, oh, I bought her a Bugatti, and oh, like I got her nails done and da-da-da. Like I think they were doing that as well. Like they like to brag about the things that they bought for their women and everything like that.
When
so
they
it's like,
can, when they can,
provide,
but when they can't,
they
act like,
and
they're,
whining.
what the fuck do you mean? Yeah.
Right. And that's me, a lot of the guys listening to this song in their fucking car about, oh, like I bought her this, I did that. And then they go on a date with a girl and she's like, oh, like, are you going to pay for it? And he's like, what the fuck? It's like, make it make sense.
Make it make sense. So let's get into more about like, because I feel like it's a very like trending thing. It's like men should pay because of like generational fucking oppression. Like it's like reparations. And there is this woman named Jean Guerrero, who's a Latina woman, and she wrote a personal essay, and it was on the LA Times. And it's essentially just about, should I expect men to pay on dates as a form of reparations for generational harm? And she's Latina, so if you like intersectionalize it, you know, it's even worse for her. Like she deserves it, you know, more than we do. So, we're just gonna read a little bit from the article. She said, the problem with framing being taken out to dinner by a man as a form of reparations is that it's privately consumed. It's not accounting for injustice in any way that's visible or acknowledged. We have to be careful not to just label anything that's personally advantageous or somehow politically justified. So I think that's really interesting because it's like, okay, like generational harm, but like we're just like having a dinner. We're not like talking about these issues, like doing any actual change making. Yeah. It's just kind of, you know, making me feel good in this moment. Like I deserve it, but really it's a community thing. It's not individualism. Like,
yeah, because it's individual relationships, like, kind of sometimes exist outside the political, but, like, it gets iffy because, like, I've dated long-term relationships with Black men. I'm not going to sit here and be like, give me reparations for my gender when they were oppressed as well for their race and probably deserve reparations even more so. Like, we're starting from different, like, playing fields, you know?
Totally.
So, like, that's what makes it so iffy. Yeah, I don't know. With the reparations, I don't know if that's like the right word. I always looked at it more as like profiting off of your oppression. Like if it's going to be like this, I might as well make the system work for me. Yeah.
Right. I'm a flash a titty for a hot dog.
Right. Exactly.
But many women believe that in our unequal times, it's only fair for men to pay. And not just because men still out-earn women. Women also tend to spend more on date prep, such as makeup, manicures, to meet female beauty standards. Some women believe men should cover the costs of not only dates, but transportation to and from. In a viral TikTok video, LA resident Gabby Faye, 27, says, I expect a man to pay for the date. Yes, the whole entire date. That includes my Uber to the date and my Uber back to my house. Mm-hmm. But many straight men perceive such expectations as evidence of women's low empathy for their struggles. In the U.S., men are now behind women in educational attainment and workforce participation. Amid these problems, women's expectations of free dates can seem entitled or vindictive. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
I don't like when people say it's entitled.
I know.
Maybe if you're a white woman and you have a hella privilege, yeah. You know what I mean? So,
and I think that's the argument that a lot of like men's rights activists are like, men's health, like obviously not all of them, but the ones that are very much against this, that they will make. So I'm kind of iffy about that argument. But if you guys listen to our male loneliness episode, and I think gender wars as well, we did kind of talk about that, like the education gap and the workforce participation and everything. Like there are a lot of like lonely, jobless, like uneducated, which, you know, going to college doesn't necessarily mean as much as it fucking did back then, but like whatever. Like there's a lot of men out here that are genuinely struggling.
Right.
And like I feel bad in one sense, but like and also transparent, like I'm not like Gabby Faye. Like I wish that I was, like I wish I had the balls to be more like, you know, you pay for this, like, no, like not reach for my wallet, like all of that. Like I really wish I could just not get anxiety in those situations. And I've tried harder to not
But the thing is, like, I don't want to have to tell someone that. I want them just to do it.
Yes.
I don't want to ask for that. And like, I don't really know why, but I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's ridiculous or if that's okay.
For the Ubers and everything like that. I think it's okay because it's like, at the end of the day, I still do believe in courting. And courting has like dated back forever. Like, I think a man, I guess it's gender roles, whatever, but I think a man should do a little bit more to get a woman's attention, because usually as women, we do have other options and we are like a little bit pickier about like, you know, like I feel like a man should show, he has to work harder to show that you're safe with him because of all of the like how sexualized we are, like in everyday society, So like I feel like a man should show that he's serious, provide those things.
Yeah, I love that. That is totally what it's about. It's like that safe space. Oh, and then the beauty standards thing about how women have to, I knew you would like that because we talk about that all the time, like lashes, nails, hair, like obviously waxing. You don't have to do all of that.
Right.
But if you want to and that brings you joy, and also like maybe it's like even today I was like, oh, I have to put makeup on. Like I love putting on makeup, but sometimes I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to. Like I'm gonna. And part of that's because I feel sexy and like hot like this, but also like, you know, society's like, don't have bags under your eyes. I'm like, I need concealer. Like, so it is like, that should be taken into consideration, like 100%, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like men fail to realize that, and then they're iffy and they bring up the whole, well, you look good without makeup situation, like whatever, which is
you
bullshit.
Don't know what I look like without
I don't
makeup.
think they realize how much all that shit costs. Like for me to get my nails done is usually at least $120 plus a tip. For me to get waxed is like probably $80. Buy all my makeup supplies, like that is a whole like utility bill plus some.
Right,
and like
bitches
I will
get
pay for it by
tans,
myself. Yeah, but they have
lot.
what, a haircut and deodorant and body wash, like. And that's because of like patriarchy and unfortunately like male standards. Like I think it's tricky though, because a lot of men that I've been with will always be like, oh, you look good without makeup on. And it's just like, I feel like you're lying to me, but okay.
Right. But also I feel like if I'm wearing concealer and mascara, they're like, oh, like you're not wearing makeup. I'm like, yeah, I am though. Like you guys just
they don't know
like, what it looks like. Like they're just but let's get into the sprinkle lady, aka Shera 7. Okay. So how does all of this tie into the sprinkle lady? Who is she in fact? What is she doing? Let's fucking get into it. So basically Shera 7 is an alias for Letitia Padua, the true woman behind the screen. At the core of Shera's teachings in the concept of sprinkle, a catchphrase that she adds with her empowerment advice. She has 572,000 YouTube subscribers and 924,000 on TikTok, might be more at this time. The sprinkle lady is a financial advisor. That's what she calls herself for her female followers, who she shares tips on how to seek out and date wealthy men to play games to win men over. Shera's renowned counsel to her audience includes quirky tips that combine finances and romance. These include avoid the negative bank account sign, and if you're still thinking about an ex that made you pay for stuff, you have Stockholm syndrome. As well as if you're on a date and they are looking at another woman, look at cars. Her videos regularly receive millions of views with titles like How to Get Money from a Man Instantly, How to Get 5,000 by the Second Date, and Men Like Toxic Women.
Said, what are you bringing to the table? Men are tired. I'm not bringing nothing to the table, baby. Sprinkle, sprinkle. If you want a woman to bring something to the table, go to IHOP. Go to the restaurant where you can tip her, baby. Sprinkle, sprinkle. Because if I bring something to the table, you're going to be mad because it's going to be another man who's going to not ask me to bring something to the table. He's going to take care of the bill, them kids, and everybody else. And you, if you look broke. Okay? Sprinkle, sprinkle.
Yeah, like she's funny. Like she's hilarious if you guys have ever watched her. And I think she really appeals to like that woman in the TikTok that we first played at the beginning. Like someone who is like fed up, exhausted, maybe someone who needs some extra money. Like she provides these tips in a funny, entertaining way that's like, oh yeah, like let me do that. But I think it's really interesting that she calls herself a financial advisor and not a relationships coach, which is important to pay attention to, I think.
Right. And we're going to get into our thoughts on the Sprinkle Sprinkle Lady, other people's thoughts, but just to kind of put it all into context a little bit more. Essentially, this article says Shera advises women over the age of 25 to seek out and date older, affluent men and to actively play games to get them. This includes hiding your insecurities from potential partners and using reverse psychology to manipulate men. So you can imitate intimacy without the risk that comes with true vulnerability. For example, if you're feeling jealous because a man you're dating doesn't pick up his phone, you should pretend you were calling for help with a flat tire, but then had to get another man to step in. Once they've locked a man down, she argues women should push for them to pay for all of the household bills and expenses. Men without money are dusties, she says, and not to be entertained.
I'll read the next part. She says, but veering away from the stereotype of the 1950s housewife and its modern iteration, the trad wife, Shera Seven doesn't suggest women take on domestic responsibilities such as cooking, cleaning, and child rearing in exchange for financial support. A man of means can hire people to help with that. You are there to look beautiful and be worshipped. This is presumably what makes her gospel so attractive, so much so that other women have started documenting their own sprinkle journeys, updating their audience as they follow Shera's advice.
Which I think it's really, she's like, no, you guys don't need to cook and clean. Like the man should also provide someone to do that all for you. All you should do is like look beautiful and be worshipped. I personally, like I said, we're going to get into our thoughts, but I don't want to live that way. I don't want to just be there to be beautiful and be worshipped. I don't.
Yeah, because I feel like, especially since we were both like strippers and sex workers and stuff, like we've experienced, you know, working for money and compensation in a way that imitates intimate relationships. You know, you have sugar daddies, you have clients, whatever. They're venting to you. You're being like sexual with them. You're being intimate with them, whatever. And like, I didn't leave those situations feeling emotionally fulfilled or feeling like that's what I want from my life. Like I wouldn't want a relationship with a man like that. Like I'm acting. And so much of what Shera is like preaching is really acting. Like, but your actual day-to-day marriage, like relationship. And that's exhausting.
And I like to live out that fantasy. And this just kind of clicked. But honestly, your whole thing of like wanting to go out and like make someone your boyfriend for the night, like you've done in the past, like that's what we did as strippers. Like you are my boyfriend for the night. Like I'm straight up like you're my man. Like that's how I'm acting. Yeah. And it's a rush. Like it's a role play. It's intense. But I think having gone through that, it's like I would never want that to be my actual relationship because it doesn't fulfill me in all the ways. It's more of just kind of like a fantasy thing to live out. But last thing we'll say, kind of still defining Shera, this last article said, you know, from Shera's perspective, every relationship is ultimately based on power. Her videos are a blueprint showcasing the art of women taking charge while simultaneously occupying the passenger seat. In the lively comment section beneath Shera's TikTok, women from every corner of the globe are leveraging her platform to share their personal stories. While some may find amusement in the videos, the prevailing sentiment is that beneath the humor lies a profound reality that rings true for many. Which, it's like, she's viral for a reason. Obviously, this is ringing true for people, whether it's just for a laugh or whatever. It's like, and we've found, like, just by existing online in general, it's like people take parts of her ideas. Like you said, they take parts of her, run with what resonates. But a lot of it is about humor. And it's like humor makes you feel better about your, you know, oppressions or insecurities or whatever. So it's a great way to cope and like blow up online. But is this the blueprint that women should want to follow? I mean, that's what we're going to get into.
Okay, so we're going to see what Reddit thinks about this and get into some stories shared by people on Reddit. Princess of the South. She said, I think she is poisoning the youth with her nonsense. LOL, I'm part of the demographic she targets and even an exotic dancer. And I still don't agree with her mindset. She has probably been super hurt in the past, and this is now her permanent mindset. While some things she says I agree with, I believe her advice panders to people who don't know who they are or what they want out of life, or a man they use as...
They use her as guidance.
Or a man, out of life, or a man, and they use her as guidance. Yeah.
And I agree.
Yeah, because it's dope that this comes from an exotic dancer because, again, like I said, we've been strippers before. But that's, like, why I'm, like, so different. Like, the men at the strip club, very different from what I want than a man that I'm actually going to be in a relationship with. Please. And I feel like when you're, like, this appeals to women who are interested in profiting off of their sexuality or profiting off of their beauty and all of that. Exactly, all of that stuff, like patriarchy. But I think when you've actually worked in that environment before, you can kind of see how, like, why the fuck would I want to bring that to my intimate relationship? Right. But, like, I wonder if Shera has been hurt before. I honestly was wondering if she had been a dancer or an escort or anything like that before, which I couldn't find. I don't think so. Because so many of her teachings, to me, come from strippers and dancers and escorts, so it seems kind of ass backwards, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I know she's married, and there's not much about her husband besides that he's like works in tech or something.
Yeah, I read a little bit about her husband, but I was kind of just like, I don't care. I guess it is like it's good because like it makes sense. Like, this is her relationship, and she's preaching about all these things. Like, is this how you live your life? So,
is it? That's what I want to know.
Right. And then Plan with Diane from Reddit was more of a positive reaction. They said, she saved my marriage. She helped me go from a 50-50 Barb the Builder to a spoiled housewife simply by letting my husband be a man, a true provider. Giving him the responsibility for his family's livelihood gave him the fire he needed to more than double his income in less than 2 years. I stopped operating from a masculine energy to a feminine energy, and it was the missing piece I never even knew about because I watched quote-unquote strong women growing up going 50-50 or even paying 100% for their man. Okay, well, Diane.
This sounds like it.
Barb
insane.
the Builder.
Yeah, that's a funny term. I kind of like that. But honestly, in a way, I kind of understand her. This seems insane. Like, doubled your income in less than 2 years. It's giving like 4X trader.
I don't
vibes.
want a true man. Like, that's
I do. But the masculine energy thing and operating in your feminine, like, I can relate in a sense. And I feel like this also ties into our weaponizing competence episode where we were talking about, like, when you're doing all of this, like, work or whatever, you have a hard time stepping back and letting him do things. And I think because, like, I've always been more of a person that loves to work, likes to, like, have money, like, all of that stuff. Like, I did realize ways in my past relationships where I kind of emasculated the men that I'm with, and I'm not like, at the end of the day, it's them, and at the end of the day, we all have masculine energy and feminine energy, and I don't think that you need to make yourself smaller to have your man be more of a man, but I think that there are things that women can do that do kind of like leave no room for men to step up.
It's not that I disagree with you, but I just like have a problem with you saying I have a tendency to emasculate the men in my life, because I don't think that's true. And we can agree to disagree. I don't care. You don't have to. We can agree to disagree, but I don't think like when it comes to masculine energy, like you're like a lady. You know what I mean? Like you're
definitely
not like
a lady.
Like just because you're a little bossy sometimes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like think of the stereotypical couple of the wife that's ordering her husband around, like do this, do that, and he's kind of like just follows whatever she says and doesn't really have his own ideas or his own agency. And it's kind of oppressive to her because she's doing everything, but at the same time, she's not making the space.
Room.
And I don't think I'm that bad or I've been that bad before. I think I was put in situations that made me be like that. Like it was the man who put it on me first. But I feel like because of that, I show up a ton in the beginning to leave room for them to show that in the beginning. Like if they're lacking, I'm not going to pick it up as much as I'm going to just disappear or like back off. Exactly. So I think that part I get, like leaving room for them, but I don't think it's about, making yourself more feminine and so like,
because I definitely I don't have like masculine energy off that. I don't think and maybe to a fault, you know what I mean? At all. Thank you. I know. And like being like queer, it's just like that kind of sucks sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. But like it is what it is. Like I'm not gonna change myself. Like I tried to dress mask in high school. It didn't go well.
I remember in college sometimes you try to like wear a hat or like wear baggy clothes and you'd be like, do I look like extra? I'm like, no, you don't.
I'm like, you look like a doll playing dress up in boys' clothes. Anyways.
Definition of a femme. But
so I'm like, I think, we're on opposite sides on this. I need to channel my masculine more. But in terms of like what she's saying, like, okay, whatever.
I will say though, just to give you credit, I do think when you're posed with a threat or when someone's like coming at you or like protecting your own, you're very like,
okay.
And I don't know if that's a masculine quality. I feel like that's feminine as well. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like I know it's like I'm OD protector, but but when I was responding to "Thou who shall not be named" on the phone in Atlanta, like was I giving?
Yes.
Like a little bit, because I was being clear and concise. I wasn't crying.
Being
like
direct.
I was, and it would have been so valid to cry. I'm just talking about when my ex-boyfriend's current wife called me to bully me. Anyways, we have two more Reddits. This one's actually positive too. General Quit 2451 said her advice absolutely changed my life for the better. Not only romantic relationships, but all relationships in my life are more beneficial and less stressful. She's a light to women. Okay, live your best life. I mean sure, okay.
If it works for you, keep
Who are
it
we
up.
to judge?
But if you're trying it and you're unfulfilled, we're speaking to you. The last one, Mazinger 0, said she's a disgusting sociopath who teaches women to abandon their humanity for men with no self-respect. She's just Andrew Tate for women. And this is something we saw a lot, guys. We're going to get into it a little bit more. Yeah. But this sounds like it's a man, but maybe it's a woman. But I do agree with the abandon their humanity part. But I think the men with no self-respect thing is a little, because men do like to give things to women and do things for women. I mean, women like to do things for men as well and different types of things. I feel like that's like love,
Yeah, and I think disgusting sociopath is a little uncalled for.
Right.
Is Andrew Tate a disgusting sociopath?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wouldn't say Shera Seven is a disgusting sociopath.
Yeah, Seven?
Shera Seven is I don't think she's a disgusting sociopath.
I think she's a comedian.
Does she have the blueprint for how women should be in relationships? No. Not in any type of universe I want to be living in. Personally. You know what I mean? So this TikTok we loved. It was someone who essentially was like, you know, I'm trying out the sprinkle method. I'm going to try out these things. But basically, you know, let's see how it went.
I took the sprinkle lady's advice and I instantly regretted it. She recommended if you want to meet wealthy men, you need to go to affluent places wherever the fuck you live and go to the restaurants. But it has to have a bar. And go there between happy hour and before 6 p.m. Okay, cool. So I'm like, I'll give it a shot, you know. I put on like this modest dress, you know, with the blazer, because you never know when life's gonna be like, hey bitch, you need to get a fucking blazer. I even grabbed a book because I was like, well, you know, I'll be present and not on my phone, so like it'll look like I'm actually doing something. And while I'm sitting in the car with my heels on and this modest dress and this blazer, I'm just like, who the fuck is this for? And I understand that to get a certain kind of man, you have to wear a uniform and you have to play a role. I'm just so sick and tired of playing roles for men that just see me as a movie. Something to watch and experience for a while, but never staying long enough to be part of the credits. I don't dress or act modestly at all, okay? I dress like Adam Sandler. It's like ripped jeans or a graphic tee. Sometimes I'll bust out the dress, okay? But it's like no underwear, no bra, and it is the sluttiest cloth, you know? Something that'll make a pilgrim just want to throw a rock at you, you know what I mean? And I don't wear heels unless absolutely necessary, because like, I'm already 6 feet tall. If I wear heels, it's just like, really? And that whole experience reminded me of this quote that really resonated with me today. Women don't have to be decorations in different places. They don't have to be something pretty for you to look at. And don't get me wrong, I love Shera Seven. Okay, her advice has really changed my life. It's just, this time it didn't really work out for me. But that's okay.
Okay, so I love how she talked about like how she got like all dressed to go to these different bars and like play this role or whatever.
Before 6 p.m.
Right. But it's interesting because I had been in the point in my dating journey recently where I was kind of like, okay, like we need to go to different bars and like maybe I need to start like playing a different role. Like I was like getting there because I hang out in a lot of like underground artsier scenes and the men there don't be having money and they be having a lot of fucking emotional issues. But at the same time, that's my type. Like that's what I like. I don't like a guy that works in finance and is really stuffy. I don't think he'd be cool with what I do on the podcast. Like that's not me. So I relate to her so hard where she's like, you know, I put on this outfit. Like I went there and I just like sat in the car and was like, what am I doing? Like I'm acting and playing a role and I don't want to do that. Like you're not going to meet the love of your life that way. Like if you're looking for that.
Right. And that's what we were saying. It's like that sort of interaction. It's like acting. It's not reality. It's like, and again, it's like some people like they could find happiness that way, but I don't think the majority of us can. But I don't think there's anything wrong. Like, we feel both ways about Shera Seven. Like, we feel conflicted. I don't think there's anything really wrong with what she's doing. Because it's humor. It's giving people community. So that's good within itself. It's a platform
it's helping
where
people build themselves back up after heartbreak.
They're sharing personal things in the comments. But for her to be so serious, like, this is how you get the rich man is just like... It's kind of laughable.
But it's also like, I just keep going back to sex work because I'm like, there were times when we were stripping when I was like, oh, like, I don't know if I want to do this, but I'd be down to like go to, and what they literally tell you is to go to hotel bars and dress up and like kind of sit there and wait for like the men on business or whatever to start talking to them. And like, also that's why like, you know, women that try to go to these places, I've heard stories of women kind of getting kicked out because they think that they're like soliciting or whatever, even if they're dressed, whatever. But that's why it's so like weird to me because it feels way too much like sex work.
The part of me that still like wants to do sex work and lets my mind explore the idea of doing sex work again, I'm like, that sounds fun as fuck. I want to do that, but I don't want to do that to find a husband.
Right.
I want to do that to get money.
A sugar daddy or like whatever.
Not to find the man of my dreams. That's not where I'm going to find him.
And that's why I'm wondering, like, because I feel like, you know, being a stripper, doing sex work has become more acceptable. It's still definitely not in today's society. Like, people are still awful to women. But like it has become more mainstream with people like Cardi B, who was a stripper. Like a lot of like music artists were dancers before. Like love her.
And SZA too.
And SZA too, exactly.
Running
so it's
back
like
to the strip club.
I feel like a lot of women are like enticed by the idea of profiting off of this stuff, but it's just so weird because I think we were, you know, like we were kind of enticed by this idea of profiting
It made
off
my
our
pussy
sexuality.
wet.
Yeah, I
sure.
was into it. It was an adventure. Like it like turned me on. Like it was like fun and everything. But like what's so weird about Shera is that it's like ass backwards and that you're supposed to be modest too. But you're taking all these ideologies literally from sex work. Like, can we just call it what it is? Okay, so next we're gonna kind of tie Shera Seven into the trending soft life trend as well, because Shera Seven appeals primarily to all types of women, but Black women in particularly. Probably because she's a Black woman and just algorithms on TikTok, but it ties in a lot with Black girl luxury, the soft life, etc. And we're gonna break it down, but let's bring in this article first.
This article says, for the last few years, Black women have gotten more and more vocal about feeling overwhelmed and underappreciated across our professional and personal lives. The NAP ministry, founded in 2016 by a Black woman, was built on the principle that rest is revolutionary. Simultaneously, there's been a gradual shift away from the once glorified hustle culture to the soft life era. In 2021, the term soft life, popularized by the Nigerian influencer community, became a liberating call for Black women around the world to let it all go and embrace a luxurious and easeful life above all else. Want to live the soft life? Book the vacation, quit the job, stop performing emotional labor, put yourself first.
Yes. And I remember when this was first trending a few years ago, because I used to watch a lot of like YouTube vloggers at the time, and some of them like were from Nigeria, some of them were Black women in America. And it was like there's kind of two sides of the soft girl. There's a bunch of sides actually.
Right.
One is like more connecting with like your divine feminine energy and like speaking softer, not letting yourself get angry, like kind of living this like more subdued life. Not really trad wife, which I think we could eventually do an episode about because it's interesting. But that's one side. And then the other side is a little bit more like Black girl luxury. That's more about like designer bags and like you deserve to have like nice things in your life because, you know, Black women are in society like pressured a lot more to kind of carry this burden in their families, in society, at work, all of those things. So they deserve to like retreat to this life of like simpler, softer things and not carry like a big burden all the time, which makes sense why it appeals to them.
And it's like what you said at the beginning, like when it comes to relationships, it's like Black women specifically like carrying more emotional labor, like generationally.
Yeah.
So it's like that's why, and it goes hand in hand with sprinkle lady, like you said, because the soft life is to sit back and be luxurious. And Shera argues that, you know, you just want to be looked at and worshipped. So it goes hand in hand. But we wanted to see kind of what some people online thought about the soft life and just this whole idea. So we watched a video called The Truth About the Soft Life. And the woman's, her channel is called Most of Mire, I think. I don't know how to pronounce. But I really liked the video. It's basically just like what even is the soft life. And I'll just summarize a little bit about what she said. I might just be biased because like I did kind of have a crush on her. But anyways, so what is the soft life? It's a life of leisure, relief, stressful, you know, stress-free. But it means something, you know, different to everyone, like you said. And what it reminded her of is Black girl luxury. And also kind of the bimbo effect and that kind of idea to just kind of sit back and be like, and just have things happen. So basically what she talked about was essentially to live a soft life means you're not dealing with that struggle love. Mm-hmm. Understanding that you do not need struggle to get to a healthy relationship. She said struggle love is the norm, unfortunately, for a lot of Black women. And she talks about people who have made videos about the soft girl life, but with a negative context. People saying that this is internalized racism, sexism, which she says is a white supremacist mindset. A lot of things Black people tap into, people analyze the fuck out of it. And she's like, why are you making something so small political? And she's like, there's nothing wrong with dissecting trends and conversations. She's like, obviously that's what I'm doing in this video. but some people take one part of something and stretch it so much.
Yeah.
And she's saying, you know, you don't need to struggle to get to where you want to go, but you do need to work. So it's like, be realistic with your goals within your soft life. It's unrealistic to think that you're just not going to work anymore. But it's like paying attention to having to work to get to where you want to go does not equate to struggling really hard and losing everything.
Yeah.
So it's like either people are struggling so hard or they're like, I'm just not going to work. I'm going to do soft life. So she's just arguing that it's like you need to live somewhere within that between space. And I think it's so true about people making things so small, political, and dissecting trends and all of that. And obviously all we do on this shit is dissect trends.
Yeah.
Because we, above all, think it's interesting. Like, you guys know, we're not getting paid to do this. Like, this feeds my soul. Like, I like to talk. Like, we like to analyze shit. But again, like, it is a white supremacist mindset to just think about everything that way. But at the same time, you kind of do to unlearn it. So I don't know.
So I definitely agree that, like, not every trend needs to be politicized and, like, we need to look completely into the deeper meaning of things. But, you know, we're a sex and relationship and identity podcast. We're going to look at the deeper meaning to a point. And, like, there's another video that I watched as well. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about, like, the struggle love thing, because that's one side of it. And it's the core idea of the soft life, but there's many different, like, branches. And I've seen a lot of women employ, like, the soft life mentality, or even men kind of get behind it as, like, a way to attract a man to be, like, more in your feminine energy, and, like, you need to speak softer to get a man. And that's kind of, like, again, acting, going outside of yourself. And the other video that I watched about this was the Soft Girl Era, the biggest scam women are selling, by the Mademoiselle. And she was just pretty much talking about, like, she's in a long-term relationship with her boyfriend, and she was just saying, like, she's had a lot of friends recently that would, like, they would talk about things and she'd be like, oh, like, I'm in my soft girl era, so, like, I need to speak softer and I need to not get mad about things and, like, whatever. And the Mademoiselle was pretty much saying, like, look, like, you're a human, you have feminine and masculine energy, you're going to get angry about things. And I think so much of, like, patriarchy and gender roles, especially with Black women, say, you know, you're too hard, you're being too angry, you need to be softer, which is a very, like, politicized identity thing. So in a way, it makes sense that they want to be softer to release that burden of, like, emotional labor and domestic work. But at the same time, don't discount your emotions and feel like you have to tone yourself down for other people to hear you and respect you. You know,
because all of that, it's also valid. And it also kind of makes me think of, it's like a way to kind of, like, run with stuff that oppresses you to get better things. So it's like everyone, you know, they might be thinking, well, there's the stereotype of the angry, aggressive Black woman. So let me be the exact opposite and let's see what the fuck happens now. But it's like, what people, like, don't know is, like, there wouldn't be that stereotype if Black people weren't oppressed so badly. Like, it's you know,
if there wasn't,
like
white supremacist, like, patriarchy that looks at Black women like, oh, you're too angry and aggressive, when they're usually just expressing their emotions with valid points and reasons,
or just existing, and
or just
in the world.
You know. So, like, it's iffy with the, like, soft. It depends on the extremes you take it. I think if you're just like, oh, I like wearing bows and more pink, and I like to enjoy the finer things of life and Black girl luxury, like, I think all of that is, like, beautiful and great. But the other thing I just wanted to bring up on this too is, like, a lot of the influencers that I saw that were, like, preaching this soft life of, like, less work and, like, relaxing and all of that are YouTube content creators. And, like, guys, we're YouTube content creators. We're Spotify content creators. We do social media. Like, it's a lot of work. And so that's what this girl was saying as well, the Mademoiselle. She was pretty much like, you're lying to these people, because where are you getting your money from? Because, like, you are putting work in. Like, that Gucci bag didn't come from anywhere, and you're still creating this content on a day-to-day basis. So, like, don't discount yourself and try to, like, preach these dreams to people when it's not true.
Yeah, you know? Because it's like, trends in general, it's not bad because everyone has autonomy. Like, you can, you know, have control and be like, I'm not going to bleed into this one too much. But at the same time, it's like, you're susceptible to that. And this sounds great, not having to work.
Yeah.
Who the fuck wouldn't want that?
Yeah.
So that's when it can get a little tricky. And like later on when we talk, you know, more criticisms about the sprinkle lady, it's like you're preaching these ideas and then just profiting off of it.
Right.
So it's kind of twisted, you know?
Yeah.
But this next section we're going to get into is kind of how a lot of people are arguing that Shera Seven's a sprinkle lady and other TikTok creators that give quote unquote dating expertise advice is inherently anti-sex work. So I loved this article. It was Vox.com. Like, I don't know, guys, but like, I loved it. So, and this, again, this is a little bit of critiquing on Shera Seven, but also just, you know, online in general, dating coaches in general. We all see women like, this is how you get a man. Like, even just making a video, this is how you get a man. I don't fuck with you. Like, I immediately
Scroll
do not
past.
fuck with you.
Bye.
Never will you guys ever see us do that. Unless it's complete fucking satire.
Yeah.
Because there's no one way to get a fucking man. Like, that's fucking stupid.
Be yourself.
Like, fuck. We all need to go back to kindergarten low key. But this article says, as hilarious as she is, meaning Shera, she is also a part of a wave of arguably regressive and deeply nihilistic, quote unquote, dating experts currently taking over TikTok. A scroll through the hashtags, hashtag dating advice, hashtag dating coach, and hashtag dating expert will reveal hundreds of these authorities, with many lauding their credentials. A BS in psychology, for example. BS? Like
bachelor's degree.
Oh, okay,
But
cool.
bullshit,
That's
yeah.
what we have. Okay. To spew advice for heterosexual singles. You might not be surprised that much of this advice is also explicitly anti-sex work and anti-women having sex in general. Dating advice from Sadia Khan, a Pakistani television actress and psychologist, is all over the TikTok dating advice circuit, shaming women who don't dress modestly or who post sexy pictures of themselves. Quote, "The girl who's doing OnlyFans, these men are not going to come to your funeral. No one's going to care. No one's going to care," she says in one video.
Bye.
Ask Nelly, the self-proclaimed #1 dating coach for high-value singles, who has nearly 800,000 TikTok followers, made a recent video captioned, "High-value men don't like pole dancers." Like,
Ew.
when we get hate as sex workers, past sex workers from men, it's one thing. But when it comes from women, let me tell you, it makes me want to cry. It makes me really fucking upset.
Yeah.
Because men, not that I'm giving them a pass, but it's like, yeah, okay.
It's what we expect. Yeah.
Right. Like, they're not smart enough, but women are. So what are you guys doing?
And that's why I think this episode is so important, because I feel like with our old feminism, I think we looked at like men as like the oppressors, like the people that are continuing to like do this like patriarchy shit.
Right.
But I think as we've, you know, done the podcast, become more educated, really looked into these topics, like we realize that women can be enforcers of the patriarchy as well. And I think it's like, it hurts more when a woman says something, because it's like, you should fucking know, at being in the same position as me. But also like when we talk about moms with their son, like who's raising the boys to be like this and da-da-da. Like
right.
I think women are as responsible, but like responsible in a lot of ways too for continuing to create the system in the way that it is.
Yeah, and it's like we always talk about how like men tend to not be able to separate like a porn star from like a girlfriend, or like a porn star and a human being. So it's like that's what this whole thing is, like high value men don't wife up strippers. And I felt like that in my old relationship. I was like, I know that my ex-boyfriend like loved me or whatever, but I knew that I don't think he was proud to be with a stripper like that. I think he liked that I was making money, but I don't think men want their girl to be a sex worker, because then it's like, oh, that pussy's for everyone. That's what he used to say.
Right.
Like girls on OnlyFans, like their pussy's for everyone. These hoes are for everyone. And it's just like, that's not true, bro.
It's
and I know
not.
the irony is you always say like he was in the videos with me on OnlyFans. Like you could see his dick,
He's
like,
as
you could
much
see
of a
his face
sex worker
sometimes.
as you.
Right. So it's just like, but it's different, right? Quote unquote, like he thought. So, but yeah, it just hurts. Like as someone that like was a sex worker, and I feel like really living that double life of like being in reality and then going to the club, and like how it was like a secret and like we were scared to tell people or didn't tell
Yeah.
everyone. Like it's just hard. And then it's like you do kind of develop that fear, like men aren't going to take me seriously because of this. And
we
sometimes they
still-
prove that to be true. So
I mean, I still feel like that to a point with us in the podcast and talking about just sex and relationships and being open about our past hookup experiences. Like, I'm iffy about, I don't tell corporate people and da-da-da because it's like anything when a woman puts herself next to anything that has to do with owning your own sexuality or being sexual is so easily seen as like dirty or nasty or untrustworthy by like greater society. So it's just, yeah. But I also want to talk about like with all this dating advice and how it's like trending so much on TikTok. I think part of the appeal is like TikTok, if I'm not consumed in the first 5 to 7 seconds, most people, like I know this from working in marketing, you're not engaged, you're moving past it. And like, I think a lot of these people are profiting off of the fact that like a lot of us are young in our 20s trying to figure out dating for the first time. We're really like millennials and Gen Z are the first generations online while going through our first heartbreaks, our first living situation with someone, our first marriage, like whatever. And like, instead of like before where you could be like out in the world coping with this, like you have this like instant access at your fingertips to be like pushed all of this advice. And a lot of it is unhealthy. And a lot of it is also from people the same age as us with limited life experience as well. And that's why it's like, guys, like we have a sex relationships identity podcast also. So like, I want to be clear, like, and not be a hypocrite, but like, that's why we take so seriously, like bringing other people's research and opinions into this, because like whenever someone is just spewing like, oh, you shouldn't do this because this is how all men are, or this is how women should act, like how the fuck, like you shouldn't trust that, because it's usually someone acting from their very limited life experiences and their very limited view. And also like your algorithm knows things about you. Like your algorithm probably knows you just went through a breakup, that you're vulnerable right now. And like, it's just scary.
So annoying. I'm like, bitch, shut the fuck up. When the photo's like 1 year ago today, I'm like,
I just like rewatched part of that, The Social Dilemma documentary on Netflix. Have you seen that?
No.
You need to, okay, anyone that's listening, you guys need to watch. Like, these algorithms be fucking crazy. But shout out to people that watch more and Shera Seven has long form content as well. But, like, be mindful of your algorithms, like,
But it is, like, it's, it can give, like, people that are, quote unquote, dating experts online, not just talking about Shera Seven. It's, like, it can give a little bit predatory and a little bit cookie, like, especially it's, like, white women that are like, this is how you get a man. It's like, like I give up at that point.
I've fallen into those algorithms before, definitely. Like, I feel like that was my whole, like, I'm gonna be more feminine shit. And like, but take pieces that work for you. Like, some of the shit is good advice. Some of it is absolute ass backwards, but.
Right. So let's move into some kind of Andrew Tate comparisons. There's a lot of articles and a lot of creators and just people in general that will compare Shera Seven to the female Andrew Tate. So this, I think, is from the same, it's the same Vox article I really like. So I'll just read it real quick. If this all sounds adjacent to someone like Andrew Tate, the proudly misogynist influencer beloved by middle school aged boys and currently awaiting trial for RAPE and human trafficking. It's not entirely unrelated. There are plenty of content creators on TikTok spewing explicitly anti-feminist dating advice. Among them, Pearl Davis, the 26-year-old reactionary who caters to the manosphere and models her content after people like Tate or Ben Shapiro. But for the most part, TikTok dating experts say they do the opposite by telling viewers not to settle for less than what they deserve. They claim they're actually empowering women. Shera herself has been jokingly dubbed the female Andrew Tate by her commenters, though this is less because she espouses hatred for women, but because she calls for a battle of the sexes approach to dating. Men will disappoint you, so you might as well use them for money.
Yeah, and this is like contributes to the gender war. Like, we've been on this, like, breaking down the gender war vibe right now, but like listen to that episode, listen to the male loneliness stuff, and it's like it makes sense. Like both Shera and Andrew Tate kind of come with the mindset of like, these men don't love you, these women don't love you, they're just using you. This is a game, you need to play the game.
Right. It's the game, and it's like what we said at the beginning. Both of them talk about relationships being very much based on power. Yeah. And not on human beings, and not accepting all of our feminine and masculinity and all of that. It's so much based on power. It's like feeding into the patriarchy like so hard, like really just living in that world. And even if you are going to be promised luxury and relaxation in this thing, it's like, do you want to do that within the patriarchy? Because I personally don't. But I think some people are like, yeah, fuck it. And I would never judge anyone for that. Like, absolutely ever. Because I think, arguably, as like being a stripper, it's like I was profiting off of the patriarchy too. I was existing in that space. But after healing from that, I'm like, well, didn't love that. You know, that was okay. It was cool.
Yeah, for a time. And like, I think it's not just patriarchy, but it's also capitalism. And like one thing I love about Bell Hooks is, and I'm gonna get it wrong, but she specifically, every time she refers to the system, it's the white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, and I might be missing one in that, but she says it's important to call it what it is because it's all of those things intersecting. And that's where you get, like, we have, like, white supremacy in here. We have capitalism in here because you're valuing people off of what they can provide for you, not off their human nature. And then, you know, you have patriarchy as well. So it's just, like, the system that we were brought up in, it's going to breed
and this is a product of it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And a little bit more about comparisons to Andrew Tate. This article said, with over 20 billion views across her platforms and counting, she suggests using your baby voice to attract men, ghosting them to make them want you more, and not talking too much on first dates to create an air of mystery. She also suggests women go to high-end bars alone before the after-work rush to pick up wealthy men. Men who don't have money are called dusties, and she says they should be avoided. One of her most popular YouTube videos is titled How to Get Your Man to Give You Money. Videos like these have sparked the Tate comparison, as the controversial influencer also has some completely unprogressive views about gender and the role of men and women within heterosexual relationships.
But I kind of like, I've fallen into this because of the algorithm. I feel like I've always kind of been more of the type to ghost men and whatever, because I think I look at it as more of a protecting my energy. Let me not open up to them if I don't think like they're of value or the relationship's of value, whatever. But one of the things that hit me the most, and we talked about this in our Lover Girl and Mysterious Girl episode, is the like, don't overshare, don't tell them too much about you. Because if you know anything about me and Autumn, like, we are chronic oversharers. Like, we literally spew our life experience online, and I will, especially in relationships with people. But I also look at things of the mindset of like, I'm a human, these are my experiences, you can share your experiences, like, we're all fucking human, it doesn't matter. But they have the mindset much more of like, oh, when people hear this from you, they're going to manipulate you. Like, one thing that I've heard a lot is like, oh, never tell a man how badly you were treated by your ex, because he's only going to use it against you. And that's something I really struggled with, because like, you know, obviously I'm not going to go to every man that I meet and like talk everything about my abusive relationship, but that's also a core part of, I think, who I am today and like what's brought me here. And like, for me to just cut that out completely and not share it with a man to try to like manipulate him, because I don't think that if he heard that information, he would take it with a loving heart, he would take it to manipulate me, is like a terrifying thought, honestly.
Right. And it's like all of this like manipulation to get a wealthy man. I'm like, I don't think the prize is like outweighs the journey it takes to get there, bro. Like, I don't want to lie. Just like that woman's TikTok, it's like, I'm tired. Like, I don't want to pretend. Like, I just want to live, and like, I will wait to find that person. And at the end of the day, it's like, my goal has never been to be rich. I feel like my goal is to be like, happy and recognizing
Right.
that happiness is not like, one state of being or whatever, successful. But so it's like, but at the end, like, I do want money. So like, I get
Yeah.
it at the same time, but I just think it's hard. And I think all of this, calling men dusties and how to get your man to give you money, it's
I
all
like the term
screaming
dusty.
anti-feminist to me.
But I do like the term dusties. I think it's funny, but it's also like, it's not helpful. Like, some of these men are actually struggling. Let's not make it worse. I don't know.
Yeah, what have we become, bitch?
I know, like, not.
I don't really like it. Okay, but this article I really liked. It's just another article that's comparing her to Andrew Tate. So we can read it back and forth. I'll start. So Shera 7, this is what she says. Men do not love you, okay? So stop thinking that they do. They tolerate you. They lust you. That's it.
The YouTube influencer Shera 7's advice for young women is as sharp as the wings of her black eyeliner. Okay. To single ladies, she offers the following on sex. The longer you hold off, the more he will like you. To married ones, don't give it up every time he wants it. Make him wait. Make him work for it still. Gotta make him chase.
Mainly, this seems like the result of confusing power, the kind a woman can wield over a man through manipulation and subterfuge, with the empowerment of women at large. So if the man is reduced to an object, say his wallet, and the woman gets what she wants, the woman wins, and hence ... feminism ? As one outraged letter to the editor from a reader who took exception to the Andrew Tate comparisons insisted, some women tackle power inequalities in society by the manipulation, exploitation, or indeed humiliation of men. But this takes place within the context of the gender hierarchy where men retain preeminence.
Granted, if you imagine that women are the eternal underdog in a relationship landscape ruled by patriarchy, it's impossible to convince yourself that literally anything you do at the expense of a man, including batting eyelashes until he buys you shoes, is a form of female empowerment. Just ignore the part where it reinforces rather than subverts every gendered stereotype of women as hypergamous gold diggers. This is how men who manipulate women's psychology to get them into bed can be derided as loathsome misogynists, while women who take a similar approach with men are Yas Queened all the way home. What is that? Oh, Yas Queen.
Like, yes, queen.
Yas Queen. Okay.
Like Abby and Alana.
Right.
But they're both playing the same game indeed. They couldn't exist without each other. And more than that, they're making the same mistake with their suspicious, mistrustful approach to the opposite sex. The pickup artists instruct that women need to be tricked into giving up sex, their sole asset in the dating marketplace. The dump him feminists do the same with men and their money. What both fail to understand, or maybe don't want to, is that the desire for love and companionship doesn't break down along gendered lines. Most people want to fall in love. Most people want to find a partner. And most people understand that these desires are not grotesque weaknesses, but a normal, and if you're lucky, wonderful part of the human experience. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I just thought they really ate with that article. Like, I just liked it. But I think what really hit me is just like, it's not that, I don't think it's like Shera 7 is as bad as Andrew Tate. I would never, ever say that because he is like a fucking rapist. But they are both playing the same game. They're both catering to people that are susceptible because they're struggling, they're unhappy because life is not fucking all like, a walk of sunshine right now. It's hard. Right. So they're looking to people that have the answer, but it's not like, it is what it is, but it's definitely not a way that's going to like help us like have gender equality and like look at things like that. So it's kind of just, it is what it is, but it's definitely not feminism.
Yeah, and it's really like letting the system turn us against each other, like on the
Even
context
more
of gender. Yeah, and it's like, again, when we talk about like bell hooks, who we're going to bring back in after, like the white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy, it's like when they say, you know, women are the inherent underdogs in a relationship ruled by patriarchy, it's easy to convince yourself these things. Like, that's why I brought up interracial relationships earlier and stuff like that, because it's like, you can say gender this, gender that, but when you're not paying attention to capitalism or race or, you know, anything else, then you're kind of like, your argument falls apart. It doesn't make any sense anymore. Like, we're all humans and we're all like affected by these greater systems. Why are we letting these systems literally polarize us instead of like seeing the human in all of us, you know?
Right. Totally. Like, I definitely could not have said it better myself, bitch.
Thank you, Eve.
Yeah. So we're kind of already starting to talk about it, but essentially we saw people on TikTok saying that Sprinkle Sprinkle Shera 7 marks the end of third wave feminism. Like, this Sprinkle Sprinkle movement is putting an end to third wave feminism, and we're currently stepping into the fourth wave. And so I was like, okay, maybe, sure. I don't really know. So it's like, you know, I feel like we've already answered that we don't think Shera 7 has feminist ideas. I think, like, you could maybe spin it that way, but it's nothing that's going to be productive to society, and it's definitely not any sort of intersectional feminism like you're talking about, like taking into account, you know, classism and everything. So I did find this YouTube video online from Destiny Utah, it looks like, and it's called Black Women Reaction to White Lady Coming for the Sprinkle Sprinkle Movement Feminism Part 1. And it's another creator that made a TikTok within this YouTube video that we're going to watch. I couldn't find it on TikTok, so I just screen recorded. So we'll watch that really quick.
What was the popularization of the Sprinkle Sprinkle movement signifies the end of third wave
The idea that the Sprinkle Sprinkle movement signifies an end of third wave feminism and some kind of grand introduction into intersectional feminism is so completely asinine, so off base, and I'm not surprised it has so many likes, because people love to take their own pulse, figure out what feels good to them, and then call it feminism. There is actually nothing the patriarchy wants more than for you to pretend to be docile and dumb in order to secure a man who is wealthy. And most people never will secure a man who is wealthy. The idea of hypergamy doesn't actually bear out when you look at the data. But it doesn't matter, because you would have been docile and dumb regardless. You know, she talks about the money and labor that goes into getting ready for work. What kind of money and labor do you think goes into chasing wealthy men? Work's not going to require you to get a Brazilian wax. And the reason that women of color have been so taken by Sprinkle Sprinkle is not because it's some kind of feminist movement that has addressed our need for liberation. It's because it is exploiting our fears and the discrimination that we face. Women of color tend to have less money. And this chasing of hypergamy is an attempt to claw our way out of one of the modes of oppression that affects us the most. But guess what? Most people never will. The data is there. People partner with people of their own same educational status and socioeconomic status. So Shera is just making money off of people's fears. She's saying what people want to hear. She's giving instructions on how to reach a goal that most people never ever will, and she's laughing all the way to the bank. And the very fact that you can say that individualism is a valid criticism of Sprinkle Sprinkle means it's not intersectional feminism, because intersectionality is recognizing the different modes of discrimination, how they can intersect within one person, and how that means we need solidarity across these different lines.
I agree.
So when you have the Sprinkle Sprinkle lady saying, I don't care about Palestinians, as she said, I don't care about poor men, I don't care about this, this, and that, I only care about me, where's the intersectional analysis? Where is the feminism at all? There were a lot of feminist points sprinkled throughout this, no pun intended, and I think that's what confused people. You know, you talk about not wanting to have a woman leader dropping overseas. Like, yes, that is an intersectional feminist analysis. But like, what's not is being like, oh, we were told to pay half instead of being told that no one has any rights to your body, even if they pay for dinner. Like, we were told that, and we were told that through feminism. And so now you're confusing messages you got from people in your life with actual feminist theory and like actual things that feminist scholars have written on for like years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
I do think this came from a good but like ultimately misguided place, because I have noticed that feminists who are white women are sometimes very afraid of getting the white feminist label, right? So being associated with the kind of feminism that doesn't take into account women of color's experiences. And so they will see something that women of color are engaging in and speaking positively on, and instead of looking at it with like actual feminist analysis, they will assume that it is correct. And they will not seek out any sort of feminist criticism of it from women of color feminists, because they are so afraid of crossing a line into being a white feminist. But she's not a feminist, certainly not an intersectional feminist. You're not going to find liberation through hypergamy. You might get a cushier life, and that is great for you. But a lot of anti-feminists have a very cushy.
Okay, so this is really interesting because full transparency, guys, like I had suggested the sprinkle. I wanted to do an episode about the sprinkle lady, and I'd seen a lot of white feminists on TikTok, you know, talking about the sprinkle lady and saying this is, you know, the fourth wave of feminism. Similar, I think one of the TikTok that she quoted in the beginning was
that
one of
video.
the ones that I saw. Yeah, and in me and Autumn talking about the topic, like something wasn't like completely clicking. And I love what this woman said about white women wanting to jump on the bandwagon of like anything that a black woman might do to be like, this is feminism, because white women
You're
are
correct.
kind of afraid to actually have a conversation in the context of feminism together. They kind of want to like jump on one thing and not like actually, you know, discuss, because there's plenty. All of the sources that we brought in here, most of them are from black women critiquing the sprinkle lady. But we see this one black woman come up and we're like, oh my God, a feminist, da da da. So I really love that, like, it kind of made us reflect on ourselves as well, because we were originally going to make this episode about the different waves of feminism and talk about, do we think this sprinkle lady is feminist? Now, after listening to other black women talk about her, I'm like, no, I really don't think that she is.
Right, because we also, this video has other people talking about this. We just picked this one TikTok, but to that video specifically, if you go to the stitch section, a lot of black women stitch and was like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is kind of what that YouTube video was saying about people love to politicize everything.
Right.
It's like, just let it be what it is. You know what I mean? Like, just let it be what it is. And what she said that I really liked is like, what Shera Seven is doing is like, you know, preaching this way of life that is ass backwards, and she's laughing all the way to the bank. Like, she's profiting off of this. And that's when it gets tricky with content creators giving advice, because it's like, you know, we come on a podcast, we don't get paid. Like, I'm sorry, we're giving you guys real fucking shit. But when it gets to be like that and someone's so zoned in of like, oh, I have this in psychology and I'm doing this, it's like, you can't really trust them to the fullest extent, because at the end of the day, they are doing a job. They're making money off of this. And especially with these ideas that are anti-feminist, I mean, it's like, it's kind of gives you the ick a little bit. You're not really so sure.
Because, yeah, it's like, this is why it's important to broaden your scope of feminism besides what just exists online and what is trending right now. Because when we're talking about black women feminists, like Bell Hooks is a perfect fucking example of someone that's like been doing the work and is directly opposing this. And Shera Seven is not saying she's a feminist. So you're right. Like, why would we politicize this and put this on her when that's not what she is? And I think as women, we kind of have this like, because women have stuck together against like gender lines and we all experience patriarchy to different degrees, like we want to jump on things and be like, oh, this is a girl's thing, this is a woman's thing, this is a feminist thing. But not everything is feminist just because it's like widely held beliefs by women. You know, it can be like reinforcing patriarchy. And I really think that's kind of what she's doing. I think, you know, again, like, I don't want to hate on Shera because I think her advice is funny. And I think it is what it is. She's a financial advisor. That's what she calls herself. But like, let's not bring her up as like this big feminist. And it's hilarious that it's the white women that are doing that.
Yeah, and like saying that it's like, oh, like black women are like leading the movement. And then this TikToker was like, what movement? Like, what feminist movement? Like, this is just like a trend, like leave it to what it is. So I think it's like, that's what we should do. Like, leave it for what it is. You don't need to analyze everything, and not analyze everything, but like put it in like our society and all the systems of oppression. Like, just let it be. You know?
And this also makes me think of, there's this one white woman who talks about feminism and like gender roles or whatever on her TikTok. She's very popular. I forget her name at the moment. I honestly don't know if I want to say it because I'm going to criticize her, but like, she talks about completely cutting men out and why she doesn't think relationships with men can be at all valuable. And I think she pulls a lot of things from Shera Seven and like other Black women that are doing this kind of financial advisor stuff, but also not realizing that the struggles of white women are different than the struggles of Black women. So it's kind of like,
that's where it's like, this is not intersectional at all.
Right. It breaks down because it's like, okay, people are using this advice for like different reasons. And again, not all of it is about, I don't know. I just go back to bell hooks where it's like, I think anything cutting men out completely is just not feminist.
Right.
So.
Right. And then it's like, I'm pretty sure the white woman in that TikTok said that like, this is like more like we're reaching towards intersectional feminism with Sprinkle specifically, just because it's the Black community.
But we've been like, Kimberly Crenshaw is the person that came out with intersectional feminism. She is a Black woman. Like, we have had way more revolutionary ideas from Black women for years. So like, for a white woman to come on TikTok and be like, this is the first, like, this is Black, it is insane to me. It's just such a white woman thing to do, honestly.
I know. But it's like, that video had so many likes, and that's why they were like, you know, I can see, that's what she said. That was funny. She was like, it has so many likes because like white women love to just like check their pulse and like decide if something's feminist. And I,
like,
I will say, like, back in the day, like, I definitely might have been giving that a little bit.
Same.
But again, it's like, just like with men, it's like, well, it's our job to unlearn it. And I think, you know, that's what we're doing now. That's what we've been doing. That's what we've been working towards. But, you know, you're not going to be perfect. And I think it's funny to be like, yeah, that's true. Like, because it's also, it's like oppression Olympics, like, you just want to be like, yeah, I'm a woman, like, I'm a feminist, but it's like, calm down sometimes. Like, it also is, you know, it's, the word feminist is so hard. It really is.
And it's also just like, it brings me back to like, let's like have a little bit more conscious thought with our algorithms. Like, the guy that I'm fucking with right now, he always calls it the machine. He's like, you put things into the machine, like, don't let the machine rule you, like, da-da-da. And it's like, I think because the Sprinkle lady was so big, like, everyone knows who she is, she's so trending, she might be the only Black woman coming up on a lot of white women's algorithms. And so then it becomes easy for them to lift her up and be like, this is feminist. So it's like, when you're engaging on TikTok, on YouTube, whatever, like, I think try to at least have a diverse view of like types of people, genders, like locations, maybe not all in America, all of that stuff. Like, be conscious of it, because your algorithm really tailors itself to your actions and reactions and your biases and the things that you haven't unlearned.
Right.
So like, when you're, you know, I think doing this podcast has forced us to do that a lot more, because we're all susceptible to it, but that doesn't mean you can just like continue to let this system rule
with
you.
The like evolution of technology. Like, they should really start teaching a class like how to deal with social media.
Yes.
Like, take a second to yourself. Think about, is this something I would, you know, like, it's because it's like, it can get scary out there. But real quick, they did bring up hypergamy. And I didn't know what that word means. So I'll just define it if you guys don't know. Hypergamy is the action of marrying or forming a sexual relationship with a person of a superior sociological or educational background. So that's like, you know, the whole thing of what she's advising people do to live this way. So this next poll, we essentially directly asked y'all, do you guys think the Sprinkle lady Shera Seven is feminist? And it was pretty split. 56% said yes, and 44% said no. So the majority did think that the Sprinkle lady's ideas are feminist. And I'm not going to be like, you guys are stupid, because like, there was definitely a time where we like thought that too. But I do think like the word feminism, feminist, it's like, it's not, that does not imply intersectionalism still today, even though, like you said, the word is coined, people are talking about it, but I don't think it's I mean, it's not even close, but it's not like a given. I don't think it is. So I don't know. I feel like now, after listening to the episode or after doing your own research, you would, understand why it isn't feminist. But I mean, I think, like that whole part about profiting off your oppression, getting men to buy you a drink, like I would say that, that's more feminist. But what the sprinkle lady does is it's like a financial advisor within your relationship type of coach. And that, I'm just kind of like, that's different than like a quick drink.
Yeah, and it's like, what even in like 2024 is feminism? Because when feminism first started, you had white feminism, and then you had black women's feminism, then you had queer feminism, like you had the first wave, the second wave, the third wave. Like, I feel like we've come to a place where like so many people can like share their views of what feminism means to them. And so it's like, if this is what feminism means to you and profiting off of your oppression, I think that's like fine. Like, everyone can have their own like views about, what it means to you. And who are we to say that's right or wrong?
Who the fuck are we? Exactly. And I think arguably, like, you kind of have to go through that to like feel that and understand like the power that you do have as a woman and like with your body and all of that to really understand. Cause that's when it really hit me how shit was so fucked, like, like directly. But let's transition talking about some men's POV, like how men feel about having to split the check, how men feel about the sprinkle lady in general, and just how men feel about, having all this financial pressure on them. So we did ask our male listeners, men, do you feel a lot of financial pressure in your relationships with women? And the majority did say yes, 71% said yes, and 29% said no. And I would say that it's kind of an obvious given factual statement that men are feeling financial pressure. How could they not? I mean, come on. I'm feeling it.
I think they are, but I think they misplace their anger towards it or their frustration with it. And this is why I just want to keep going back to like, can we ask the deeper meaning of things? Can we ask why? Can we ask where this comes from? Because I think it's just two like sides butting heads with each other versus looking at like, okay, like I get why she wants this, or I get why he feels this pressure, etc. But I can't empathize because I'm not a man, but but it's I do get it.
This way of thinking doesn't allow for us to be empathetic towards one another. This manipulation game of getting money and use, like that's not the world that we want to work for. Yeah. And I get why people are like, well, at this point, I'm just going to do it because I'm so tired and I'm lonely or whatever it might be. But it's like that type of ideas does not allow for like the bell hooks thing of like knowing where men and boys come from, how they're raised, intersectionally, black boys, white boys. It's all different. It's all so different. And there's no way to really come into any understanding without acknowledging the intersectionalism and all of that. And this whole type of like, pay for everything men is not getting us anywhere further. And so this YouTube video, it's called Medium Man. The video is entitled How to Deal with Sprinkle Women, and addressing the leaders of the black community. But we're more going to talk about how to deal with sprinkle women and what he said. So we're just going to play a little bit of that video. I screen recorded it.
Some women will follow her advice, but the majority won't, because they believe that giving a man sex will get them what they want. And if you're a man of means, you understand that you don't earn money to give to women. You earn money to attract women. Once they know that you're doing well, they'll try their best to stick around. And that means by sex, early and often. And once you get what you want, then you decide if you want to invest a little bit of money into this woman. And if she asks for something outlandish, paying a bill, buying bags, jewelry, you determine what you're willing to give. If the answer is no, then you leave with a piece of her pussy in your pocket and she lost. You won. It's all a game until you're ready to stop playing. And also, let me say this. You modern men are actually privileged. We didn't have social media back in the day. And the best thing about Shera Seven is that she's using public platforms to get her message to women, which you have access to. So instead of getting mad, watch the goddamn videos and understand the signs and tactics that she teaches these women and use them to your advantage. You already know that most women aren't doing well for themselves financially. So the majority of them are starving for a man to take care of them. Or in other words, provide a soft life. Most women aren't refined enough to move as a truly elegant woman. So instead of learning how to manipulate a man with their femininity, they come off forceful.
So the part that really got me is when he was like, I'm gonna keep her pussy in my pocket. And like the whole, like, if she asks you for these extravagant things, like a Birkin, like a car to pay her rent, and the guy says no, then he's telling men, like, you won, like, she lost,
right,
you got to
won.
fucking, you didn't buy her anything, like, you won. And it's like, bro, what game?
What
like,
are we winning?
What are we winning? Like, I don't want to play anymore. Like, I really don't. And I think that's just on, like, growing up, because I think back in the day, I wanted to play. I wanted to play. I would tell men, you know, I was fat phobic, and I would be like, you're fat. Like, I would be so mean. I wanted to fucking play because I was, you know, seeing what I was going through at the strip club and just in general. So I do understand. I'm losing my train of thought. But yeah, putting a piece of her pussy in your pocket is crazy to me.
I mean, I always say I want my man's dick on a keychain, but like, anyway.
But not like in an objectifying way.
Not in objectifying, or you're winning the game. And like, I look at this shit as like, what's a game, as like my corporate job and like me needing to work to make a fucking living, like capitalism. But let's not bring capitalism into our intimate relationships and make this like you gotta like finesse the system to like get up. Like, intimate relationships, I don't think should be a system. Like, you're gonna have politicized identities, etc. But like, you're trying to create your own beautiful reality that is like a piece from all of this outside bullshit. Like, you shouldn't go into an intimate relationship like, let me fucking get up on this person. Like, what
the fuck? Like, and I get that women are so mad and hurt and tired that it's like they would go to that level. I do understand that, but it's just like, that's not the answer. And also, like, what he was like, you know, we men today are lucky because we have social media. We can watch the sprinkle lady, look for the signs, and if we come across a woman on a date acting like that, like, we can curve her immediately.
But I will say though, like, I mean, I've like engaged with some of like the whatever podcast, Andrew Tate, whatever, through researching with this podcast, and I've like come across some of like the common language that they use. And I'm like iffy, like if a man that I'm fucking with or someone I know brings that shit up, like I don't think I try to manipulate them. Like, I try to dodge that shit. So like, it is like, it makes it so much harder to have like genuine connections with people because we associate like these ideas or these behaviors so quickly with something else. Like, a woman could just go on a date with you and her belief is that when you're courting me, you should pay for dinner. And then this guy has watched the sprinkle lady and he thinks she's just trying to finesse him when she was actually there for a genuine dinner. And now all of a sudden he's writing her off when they could have had a good connection. So like, that's what's so like fucked to me.
And both things can be true. Like, you guys know we're all about duality, but it's like, it's like, yes, that Shera Seven could bring people community, Black women community, all women community across the globe. They can share personal stories about how they've been wronged and how they whatever. And that's special and that should exist. That's what being online is about. It's about forming safe spaces, community for people to relatable content. But at the same time, like what you're saying, it's like then men ruin it and pay attention to that and demonize women that want to act like her without understanding why women might feel that way. Because yes, we're like, Shera Seven, it's not a feminist movement. She never said it was a feminist movement. No one should be saying that it is. And it's definitely not intersectional, but at the same time, do I understand why women want to kind of look at men like objects for their wallet? Yes, because I've been there, and I wish men would just take themselves out of it for a second to understand where we're coming from. We're not saying you're a bad guy, but there are bad guys out there. There are a lot of bad guys out there that are products of this white supremacist, racist, homophobic society. It's like, if we're able to do that, y'all should be able to do that. Like, we want to meet men halfway, and them just like demonizing these trends that make some women feel special and empowered. It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
So this next video, honestly, this man really pisses us off. He talks so fucking slow. So we're not going to show that much, but you guys might have seen it. It was like a viral TikTok, and it's essentially like this guy asked to split the bill, and the woman got mad. Like, how the fuck would you do that? So we'll watch a little bit.
So I get the bill, and I just suggest, you want to go half on it, and the reaction I got was like half. What do you mean half? Like, it was just like out of this world that anybody can ever ask her to go half on a date. Like, it was absurd to her. So that's when I started recording, and I asked again, like, oh, like, what'd you say? And then that's basically, when the video happened. And then she just wouldn't let it go as we're walking to the car and stuff. So I was like, let me record her in the car so like people can, I don't know, I guess after receiving these comments and stuff, I guess people see it the other way, but to me, I just thought it was crazy, like how entitled, how can you expect to go out and not spend any money? Women are only feminists until it comes to certain things that they don't want to do. Everybody's a feminist until it's time to split the bill. And but then going into gender roles and stuff like that, so this is not back in the day. We're in, it's 2024. Women are very independent. I don't need no man. I can take care of myself. I can do this. And so, okay, fine, fair. You don't need no man, whatever. So pay your half.
I feel like for him to say that, like, anytime that comes out of a man's mouth, it's a little bit like, what the fuck? Because, like, you're not understanding. Like, I think it's very reasonable for a woman to want a man to pay for her dinner on the first date, especially if he asked her out, whatever. And we're going to get into, like, more of how we think those finances should be split a little bit later. But, like,
right after
the part that pisses me off about this is why it's Fox News. Like, it's literal news. Like, when
this
is
Fox
an interaction.
News, January 2024, y'all. End of January. So
and it's like, this is like, we're, again, like, politicizing relationships. We're making, like, intimate interactions, and we're making them sensationalized as, like, this big news and, like, whatever. But at the same time, we're probably doing it in our own shit. So, like, whatever. But I do think, I don't know. I'm like iffy now that like we've brought in the bell hook stuff and the stuff about like men being socialized the way that they are, because it's like, even when we're talking about like men need to understand us and where we're coming from, I think women can try to understand men a little bit longer, because like, what if you first time going on a date and he's struggling hard as fuck, he just lost his job, like he's trying to get a new one, he only has so much money, but he's really into you and he wants to take you on a date, like, you expect certain things. You want your nails done. You want this done. Like, whatever. Like, sometimes your standards are that you want a man to provide this, and that's not what you're going to accept, whatever. But also, like, I think we both, on both sides, need to be, like, a little bit more empathetic in today's society. Like, I think men need to do it so much more than women do. Like, I want to stress that.
Right.
I'm not an advocate for this type of shit. But I do think that as women, I don't know though, because I'm also thinking about all the women that have held it down, like the TikTok in the beginning and me and everything. Like you hold it down with these men and you're doing all the emotional labor and they're not meeting you there. So I'm also all for women being fed the fuck up. So it's like
so hard. Like, and that's why I'm like, this guy's saying like women are only feminists until they want something. his point of view is all types of twisted. So I'm not saying like, oh, is there any truth to him saying that?
Right.
But thinking about bell hooks and all of our new knowledge,
Yeah.
I'm like, is there any truth to that? Not from coming out of his mouth, but from ours and analyzing it. I'm like, but I think a lot of women would argue, well, you paying for the bill and me demanding that you do is feminist. Like, but now it's like we're uncovering, like we said at the very beginning, like paying for a bill, while it might feel like feminist, at the end of the day, it's just you and this man on dinner. You're not doing anything. You're not talking about intersectional feminism. Like, is that feminist, or is that just like you, like, I don't know. And then it gets tricky too when you think about white women versus, like, it's just, it's all so
complicated. And it's hard when it comes out of someone's mouth like his, because it makes me think of the argument that men love to make of like, oh, you're feminist until it comes to a draft. Do you want to be drafted? And it's like, okay, like feminists literally fought for like equal rights and to be in the military.
Right.
I mean, I don't either, but like there's plenty of women who wanted to be serving in the military and all of that stuff. So like, you know, like it depends on the woman, and like the system oppresses us because of our identity, our skin color, our gender, our sexuality, all of those things. But like in your like intimate it's just, it drives me crazy. I don't know.
Right. And then you just pull back even further and it's like race and gender. It's all a construct. Like, what are we even? It's like, you can really get into some rabbit holes.
And then they're trying to get rid of like gender classes and critical race theory and all of that. But it's like, how are we ever going to like actually have a conversation with the system and tear it apart and build a new one without learning about the system that's oppressing all of us? Like, Okay, well, anyway, let's get into our next poll.
Which is our last poll.
Our last one, guys. We're almost there. We know this is a really fucking long episode, but we felt like all of this information needed to be shared.
And it's episode 50!
It's episode 50, so it counts for 2 pretty much. But anyway, we asked you guys, how do you believe the finances should be handled in relationships? 41% said split everything 50-50. 37% said whoever asked who on the date pays. 20% said the men should always pay, and only 2% said the women should always pay no matter what. And I feel like this just speaks to the fact that we are all way more on the same page than we think we are, because the top 2 split everything 50-50, which is nearly, you know, most of it. And then the second one right behind, whoever asked who on the date pays, like that's a very equal way of looking at things, but we're sensationalized by these influencers and these algorithms to think that like it's not, you know?
Right. And you know what? I know we do our listener stories at the end, but I'm going to read one first just because it directly relates to this, and it kind of changed me, because I originally was like, I mean, I don't think you should split 50-50 all the time, but I think in general, like that's a good rule to live by. But this one listener said, I think whoever has more money should pay more regularly. And that's where I'm like, yes, because it's about equity. And if you're looking at the person you're in a relationship with, not as their gender or anything else, just as a human, and, you know, we live in a capitalist society, it's like, who makes more money? Like, who, you know what I mean? Like, I think that is a good thing to live by. I really do.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to read that. There's another listener story, too, that goes in with this that I'm just going to read now because it's like the same.
Do it.
There should be a balance, not really 50-50 all the time, but shifting to according to what's happening in the relationship. Maybe you need to lean on me and maybe I need to lean on you. But at the end of the day, we got each other and we're both financially independent and codependent adults. The codependent part threw me a little bit because I feel like that's the opposite of independent. But like, exactly, like I feel like, you know, when you've actually decided you're going to be in a relationship with this person, I think most people really do feel that way, that like, you know, we're going to split it 50-50. I think courting is a different thing. It goes back in history. I think women have, I think, enough of a right because of how unsafe men make a lot of spaces to like want like men to provide a little bit more in the beginning, just to feel like they're like secure and they can, you know, they are interested in you and they want to do that. But in most relationships, I think people want to do things for each other and like want to have each other's back.
Yeah, because like what I talked about at the beginning, it's like it feels good to pay for your partner sometimes, whether it's a woman, a man, fucking whoever. Like that feels good. Like even if you're not like gift giving is your love language, like it just feels good as humans to care. And and to do that for your partner. Just be like, you know what? I got this. Okay. Daddy's home. Like, I like to do that sometimes.
But I will say just real quick, because I know we want to move on to the next thing, but like just real quick, like I do think women are moving more into this vibe of like demanding men pay for things, because like as a woman that used to pay for everything for my fucking ex, I would put him into the category of sassy men, and like sassy man, you know, we have an episode on that, like whatever, but it's that men have never really experienced that. So when they have a woman start paying for things, I feel like they kind of sit back and they're like, oh, this is nice, and let me not like come to the table with anything as much, which is a little bit like, what the fuck, this was supposed to be 50-50, but I know men will take advantage of that privilege.
Right.
So like that's another argument as well, where it's like women, you know, holding it down, and then
I know, and like men never like acknowledge that, like, I don't know if this is like a comment out of left field, but it's like the cooking, the cleaning, the taking care of kids, they never acknowledge that as like hard work, like holding it down, like that's just what you're supposed to do.
Right.
You know, so.
And listen to Weaponized Incompetence. We talk about that.
We talked
as
about
well
that,
there.
yeah.
Okay, so let's start to wrap it up and give you guys some hope for the future. And we're coming back to our girl, Bell Hooks. Read the book, please. Everybody, I just want you to read the book. You're going to love it. I swear to God. But Bell Hooks says, emotionally wounding boys is socially acceptable and even demanded in patriarchal culture. Denying them their right to be whole, to have integrity, is not only encouraged, it is seen as the right way to do things. Terrence Real, who I want to read his book next, says, we force our children out of the wholeness and connectedness in which they begin their lives and encourage them to, quote, bury their deepest selves, to stop speaking or attending to the truth, to hold in mistrust or even disdain the state of closeness we all, by our nature, most crave, end quote. Exposing the harsh reality of the psychological patriarchy, Real has the courage to speak his truth. Quote, we live in an anti-relational, vulnerability-despising culture, one that not only fails to nurture the skills of connection, but actively fears them, end quote. Teaching boys to despise their vulnerability is one way to socialize them to engage in self-inflicted soul murder. This wound in the male spirit caused by learned acts of splitting, of disassociation, and disconnection can only be healed by the practice of integrity. Wounded males must recover all the parts of the self they abandoned in serving the needs of patriarchal maleness. Such recovery is the necessary groundwork for restoring integrity to the male being.
Like I'm coming everywhere. This shit, and we live in an anti-relational, vulnerability despising culture. One that not only fails to nurture the skills of connection, but actively fears them. That's my new favorite quote. I've never heard anything more true than that.
And it's because of the system.
I love writers.
I need to read Terrence Real's book next. Like, that's the next one. So you guys know there's going to be more episodes that are going to bring that shit in. But go ahead and read the next part, because
next paragraph. Bell Hooks said, to heal, men must learn to feel again. They must learn to break the silence, to speak the pain. Often men, to speak the pain, first turn to the women in their lives and are refused a hearing. In many ways, women have bought into the patriarchal masculine mystique. Asked to witness a male expressing feelings, to listen to those feelings and respond, they may simply turn away. There was a time when I would often ask the man in my life to tell me his feelings. And yet when he began to speak, I would either interrupt or silence him by crying, sending him the message that his feelings were too heavy for anyone to bear. So it was best if he kept them to himself. That's huge, you guys.
Yeah, so big.
That's revolutionary thought right there. As the Sylvia cartoon I have previously mentioned reminds us, women are fearful of hearing men voice feelings. I did not want to hear the pain of my male partner because hearing it required that I surrender my investment in the patriarchal idea of the male as protector of the wounded. If he was wounded, how could he protect me?
Oh, I have chills.
I want to go back to school, bro.
I have such chills because it's like we've all been there. We actually had someone comment on our male loneliness episode talking about how, like, when he felt lonely, he would turn to the women in his life, and he felt like it was met with just like, you know, it doesn't matter. What are you going through? I don't want to hear this. And like, we talk a lot about how men usually feel more comfortable venting and kind of dumping their shit on women because they don't feel comfortable doing it to the men in their lives. And we kind of like complain about it to some points because it can be exhausting. But at the same time, it's like, once you realize that they have no real space to like outlet these feelings of this oppression that they feel, where they've been disconnected from like all of their emotions, it's just like, damn, like for him to share that with you is actually like really beautiful. And like, we should listen to them more, because at the end of the day, like, you're talking to his inner child. Like, he's just a little boy as much as you're a little girl, and we're all like learning to heal ourselves, you know?
Right. And I think it's like so crazy, the part where she's like, I would silence him by crying. I think like I can definitely like relate to that. And I think, you know, does that silence men, or does that silence men because you're not giving them space, or does it silence men because they really just don't know how to deal with emotions like that? And they're like, oh, well, if I speak my feelings, it makes women cry. But that's something they need to unlearn. And it's unfortunate that like we're looking at this from a lens of like really trying to uplift men, when I don't think that's reciprocated at all when men try to learn about feminism or intersectional feminism, whatever. Not whatever, very important. So that kind of sucks, you know, like.
Yeah, and it makes me think too, like when we talk about, you know, white women and feminism, like how a lot of white women will cry and use tears as like a shutdown to not have difficult tears. Yeah, white tears, to not have difficult conversations. And it's like, as women, like, I've definitely done that with men in my life and been like, your feelings are too much for me. I can't carry this burden. You're supposed to be the man. Like, we literally, I forget what episode it was where we talked about like, oh shit, like men have feelings. Like, sometimes we literally forget because like they present themselves in this way that they don't. And like, we get so pissed off at them. Like, why aren't you more vulnerable? Why aren't you more emotional? All of this stuff. But once you realize that like, he might want to be, but he doesn't really know how. And I would challenge men to be like, you know, it's not all on us as women to save them, because I really want to get away from that. You don't want struggle love. You don't want to save this man. Like, you can only do so much. But when you can have empathy, have empathy. And I hope that men confront the patriarchy in the way that they're socialized, to realize that like, when we talk about patriarchy, we're not just talking about the way it affects us, but the way it affects you guys too. Like,
because it does affect you. And I think that's like where, you know, that's been more apparent now. Like in recent years, it's like, oh, well, it's a women's issue. It's a women's issue, but it's not. It's all of us. I think, oh shit, men have feelings would be a great title for a book.
Yes.
I wrote it down.
I think we should do an episode. I have that in my list of potential ones, because it's really like, we're so guilty of it. Like, we all do it. And even with the sassy man apocalypse, like, I look at sassy man shit like we do, like both a little bit differently than like he should be building houses, like all of that stuff. But we've kind of turned the patriarchy around and put it back on men because we've been frustrated with their inability. But then I think once we realize that we're just further oppressing them in ways that they've been oppressed and hurt and broken as little boys, like think about the little boy in him, you know? And I don't want to apologize for any of the fucking,
because it's also Tate. Think about the little girl too, but they both can exist.
They both can exist. And that's why it's like, I don't want to have conversations with like the guy from the whatever podcast or Andrew Tate or people who, you know, are so far removed from ever like questioning themselves and like, you know, interacting in a way, like they're just so separate. But like in our intimate relationships, I think it's important to bring this in there.
Like, what would Andrew Tate think about bell hooks? He doesn't have enough brain cells to comment.
Right.
So, but yeah, let's get into some listener stories, guys. We have a few more that we can read. This listener said, I just legit think men should pay for everything because they make more. Always have, always will.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of covered this. Like, yes, like men still make more money, especially than white women. Like, it's different with black women make even less. Like, all of that should still be taken into account. I do still think like the thing about like women being more educated, all of that comes into play. But like, I'm just like, I get it. Like,
I'm conflicted. I have nothing.
I'm conflicted.
Right.
Yeah. Next one. I feel like Shera Seven is a feminist in her own way. LOL. Like her own genre. And I get this. Like, that's what I was saying before. Like, every woman has their own type of feminism. Like, it's so broad. We almost needed a new word. We almost need a
At
new
this point,
fucking word for
like
this shit.
intersect X or something.
Like, yeah, Gen Z, intersectional feminism, anti-capitalist, patriarchy, gender.
Yeah, it would be a long ass word, but Bell Hooks says it's fine, so we're gonna do it. And this next listener said, I think women should embrace their feminine energy and let men do all the work. A lot of my girlfriends will do all this work trying to book resis and trips for their man, and they don't even appreciate it and end up leaving. Just let them do the work for you, because if they want to, they will. And yeah, I love this. It's like if they would, or if they, I'm drunk. If they wanted to, they would, like whatever. And they definitely would. I don't think like you should be doing any grand acts, gestures like that for someone that's not going to appreciate it. Fuck that shit.
Especially in the courting phase. Like, courting is still like, you know, like guys should come to the table with a little bit of something, because we're going to get our hair done, our nails done. We're going to look cute to go out to dinner. Like, we're putting money in as well, just in a different way. Okay.
Totally, bitch.
Next one. I believe in 50-50 when you're first getting to know someone. That way, no one's at a loss if things don't go to the next level. But if I'm dating a man and he wants to be exclusive, he's going to have to show that I don't need another man. A high-value man will always know what a woman brings to the table is worth more than 50-50. This is so interesting to me, because this is completely flipping what we've been saying, where we were saying, you know, he should come with not 50-50. But then once you're in the relationship, it should be 50-50. She's saying it's the opposite. Like, until we know where we stand with each other, you know, we're not committing. Let's go 50-50.
Right.
But once I want to be with you.
But I also just hate the term a high value man and a high value woman. What the fuck is
I know.
that? I
hate
that.
it too, because I feel like it comes from a lot of this gender war shit that uses stuff to
that like
oppress
ruined
people.
it for me. But I do kind of like, I see the like going 50 at the beginning, so it's like, you know, you're just going to know someone. But I think what we've talked about, like first impressions like matter for women, and they want to see how you're going to show up for them right at the beginning, because I don't want to go through bullshit when I've gone through a bunch of bullshit. So I kind of got what he's saying. But at the same time, it's like a high value man will always know. That's the same rhetoric that Andrew Tate and the Sprinkle.
But this is a woman that said this.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, this is a woman. And this is a
I don't
woman
care.
that I also know is a stripper.
Oh.
So it's interesting. I don't know.
I just don't like a high value man.
I know.
Like a high value stripper. Like, she costs more than the other one. Like, you know?
Yeah, what is high value?
Right.
How are we where is the ranking? Where is the scale? I don't know. But yeah, that wraps up our listener stories, guys. This is, again, long as fuck, but we gotta conclude. So let's get into what we're wet, dry, and confused about the topic, like we do with every single fucking episode. Autumn, do you want to go first?
Autumn. I'm wet that we chose a crazy large topic and somehow made it all make sense and blend together.
Yes.
Not only through the outline, but just through conversation and like all the episodes that have brought us to this point, because we've really changed through doing this podcast and like forcing ourselves to sit down to educate ourselves, to then educate you guys and to learn together. So I think it's really, I don't think having empathy for men is anything to be ashamed of, or like that's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's revolutionary for me.
Yeah.
I'll speak in I statements for both of us, but for me, a lot too. And being queer, like not really needing men in the same way like a straight woman does. Like, I can kind of separate myself from it and go through phases of like if I care about men's shit and if I don't. But yeah, I'm just wet about acknowledging myself that we do have empathy for men, and we're all really in this fucked up system together. It affects us all in different ways. Some people a lot worse than others, but it affects us all nonetheless. So I'm wet about fully acknowledging that and not only knowing it, but believing in it and passing that off to you guys as well.
Okay. Yes. I'm definitely wet that this is our 50th fucking episode. Like, I feel like we've just come so far in figuring out, like, who we are and what we want to talk about and, like, our views and, like, you know, learning with you guys and all of that. I'm also so wet for Autumn making this outline, guys. She put a lot of fucking work into this. Like, this was a complex ass topic and we were going to go in a different direction. And she really put in all of that work. So, like, I'm wet for you for that. I'm wet that we're thinking critically about it because we were going to go down a route that we saw on TikTok and that we thought, like, this was the next wave of feminism.
Turns out we were very wrong.
And we reassessed. So I think we learned a lot in this episode too. And yeah, I'm wet about bell hooks, guys. Like, fucking wet about bell hooks. Love her. And I'm really excited to read Terrence Real next. I think just like you said, like unlearning this like hate for men and just realizing that like including men in our feminism and also like paying attention to their struggles like does feel revolutionary, especially in like what seems to be like such a polarized internet dynamic or whatever. So definitely wet for that.
I'm definitely dry about those like men's point of view videos we watched at the end. Like, I feel like they're just like so twisted, like way more twisted than fucking Sprinkle Lady. Like, I really think so.
Yeah.
Because they're just, and it's equating like Andrew Tate to Sprinkle and how they couldn't exist without each other, and that whole, you know, it sucks that susceptible women are feeding into that and trying this out in their life and then realizing like it's not serving them. Like, it's like the downside of social media, the downside of being angry at the patriarchy and the decisions that can lead you to do, because it can get kind of dark. And like, I've been there, we've been there. So I'm dry about that little piece.
Yeah, I'm definitely dry about like just the online like gender wars and like how it is so polarizing. I'm dry about the fucking algorithms that contribute to this and don't challenge people to like look into other ideas and other perspectives and points of view. I'm dry about white feminism. I'm dry about Andrew Tate. I'm also very dry that Shera Seven is against sex work when I feel like a lot of her mentalities are pulled from sex work ideology, but then is like forcing the conservative stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I'm dry about. Yeah.
I feel like we're confused. I mean, you know, us considering if this Sprinkle was a new wave of feminism, like I don't want to demonize our mistakes. Like the fact that we're thinking about it and growing is like, that's what's important. And I also, like, it's confusing. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, we're all trying to, like, fight the power, like, use our voice and, like, you know, do all this. It's not, like, I don't think anyone should be shamed for thinking Sprinkle is feminist, but it's also just important to, you know, listen to the community that this quote-unquote movement is being taken place in.
Yeah.
And then amplify their voices and go from there and form your own thoughts. But yeah, it's all so confusing, and like I feel like we left you guys with bell hooks too. It's like to heal, like men do need to learn how to feel again. We need to give them the safe space to learn how to feel again, and try not to silence them. And it's like, that's what we just need to focus on. Even if the men are sucking and they're not going to do that for you, like maybe it'll just make us feel better to treat them more like human beings, because I don't think this whole like treating them like objects as their wallet is really working, and it's not sustainable, especially if you actually are straight and want a real relationship. If you're bisexual, lesbian leaning like me and you want to play around, I mean, sure, you're like, okay. But for people that are straight, I mean, this is serious. Like, men can't just be wallets. Like, don't you want to have a beautiful love partner? Like, so it's all confusing, and we could go on, and there's going to be many more episodes like this in the future on our fucking channel, whatever you call it.
Yeah, I'm definitely confused about the same, like, because I feel like I'm confused about what men are doing the work, and maybe we need to do a better job of finding those men, because I don't know who they are. Like, I can think of one male TikTok influencer that's, like, a little bit okay when it comes to these things, but, like, in general, I don't hear those voices. I don't see those men having conversations with the patriarchy and trying to unlearn these things. So like, I'm confused about where that's taking place or how to make it happen. And I do want to shout out all the men that genuinely like leave thoughtful comments and interact with our content, because that really gives us hope and makes us like excited that like it's reaching not just women but like men as well.
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also confused about like the soft life shit and like some of how this pertains to like Black women and feminism, and when it's okay for white women to interact with it and when it's not, because like it's always a little bit weird when we're criticizing things that exist in the Black community, and like I don't want to exist in a complete plane of just white feminism. I want to like, you know, interact with Black feminism, intersectional feminism as well, but like I want to be careful not to just like bulldoze over certain things and like step my foot in things that aren't like where we should be stepping our foot in. And especially when it comes to the soft life, which was born from Nigerian influencers. I don't know enough about Nigerian culture and Nigerian gender roles to really like completely interact with that in a way that I feel like confident about.
Right. It's like, so how do you spotlight something and elevate something, but you're not the center of it though. You're just, you know, the platform that wants to talk about it. But it's really tricky. It's really, really tricky. And I think it's going to be a lifelong journey for us as white people.
Yeah, to like, balance it, because it's like we want to bring in different voices and like share things, but like we're not always going to get everything right too.
Right.
So, like,
and we can read bell hooks, we can learn, but at the end of the day, it's like the interpersonal shit, like how you show up in reality in life, that's when you need to really make change and like be careful and watch yourself, you know. So that's just like, it's just going to be an ongoing thing. Yeah. But yeah, this episode was 7 hours and 37 minutes long. I really apologize to everyone.
50.
If you made it this far, like DM us on Instagram and I will do something. I don't know. But if you watch the whole episode, DM at Autumn Kyra on Instagram, AUTUMNKAIRA, and I will do something. I will be so grateful. But yeah, that's it, right, bitch?
Yeah, that's fucking it.
That'll be, so wait, what do I say? So yeah, wherever you guys are listening right now, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are, make sure you follow or subscribe, whatever is applicable. If you've already done that, give us a like, leave a comment. We always interact with our comments. We've gotten some amazing comments and then some not so great comments, but no matter what, we do be interacting. That's what this whole thing is. We want to have a conversation. So let us know your thoughts below. You can always DM us. We are on every platform at So Wet So Dry. The O's are zeros.
Yes, and if you guys are listening on Spotify, even if you're not, we put the link at the bottom of the description for every platform. We have listener support, 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99 a month. It really helps us pay for better mics. We still haven't gotten them. I feel like I've said this in the last 10 episodes.
But we will. We're working on it.
Trips to create more content. We do TikTok skits every now and then. Like, we want to do more vlogs and all of that stuff. And also, we eventually want to do this fucking full time. So we have more time to fully research topics and all of that.
And also rate us on Spotify too.
Yes, rate us on Spotify. Anything you do to interact with the algorithm just helps us in general. So
yes. So thank you guys so much. And that about does it for this episode. So we will catch you in the next one. Bye.
Right.
So continue reading. It says, you know, this knowledge is pure feminine power, which is a massive threat to the patriarchy and how our current society operates. There's a reason you are pushed into feeling fear, shame, and embarrassment over your period. This disconnects you from your body, your sacred life force, your Shakti energy, your womb wisdom, and from your sexual energy too. When you're disconnected from your body and intuition, you become much easier to manipulate and control. When you believe that the blood your uterus produces, which flows out of you through your vagina, is disgusting, you start to think that your body and your sexual organs are something to be ashamed of. Bro, like, this is huge because it's nothing in our world is coincidental. Like, truly, because like to say that like men profit off of us being embarrassed of our period could be a reach, but it's kind of true. Like you are like, I don't know. This article really, I was like, damn, bitch. Like, we need to connect to our fucking womb wisdom.
Yeah, because I really feel like for me, like, as terrible as I feel, like, the couple days before my period, like, for me, the last couple days of my period and right after are always when I have, like, a surge of, like, energy and I'm, like, ready to do all my to-do lists. And I feel like it's, like, that cycle of, like, rebirth, regeneration. Like, you feel like you are really, like, I'm a goddess. Like, I'm doing this. And, like, if we just paid attention to what society tells us, like, you would just feel bad about all of that. But once you get more in tune with your body and you pay attention to your cycles and how you're feeling, like, use that as your power.